Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and welcome to another Superhero Rewind commentary on the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. And look, once again, it's my sidekick and partner in crime. We'll be both. We'll be good guys and bad guys tonight. It's Austin, the Day Ghost.
How's it going, everybody? We're back.
I feel like I just did this.
It's weird, right?
We're on the second movie of a double feature. If you're just tuning in for Daredevil, we just finished X2 a little while ago. Had a ton of fun talking about that. And we're going all the way back to the exact same year, but a little bit earlier. It's 2003's Daredevil, but 2005 or 6's Daredevil, the director's cut, whenever that came out. Because I think it came out a couple years after that.
I'm actually not sure. Is it a couple years after?
I remember seeing it show up at a Walmart like well after that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually look this up to see what the real release date was. I should do that.
Yeah, I actually have no idea what the timeline is on this. I just assumed that when it came out on DVD, it was like, okay, and here's the director's cut.
I'm checking here. I'm just getting the theatrical release. Just looking it up, so it might take a little while to figure that out. Maybe somebody can tell us in the comments. Anyway,
That's okay. That gave me exactly enough time to set up this movie on my Xbox.
I hope you guys found ways to watch this. This isn't readily streaming anywhere. The easier way to watch this, of course, is the theatrical cut, but it's basically a trailer for this movie. That's hyperbolic, but it sounded funny to say.
It's not entirely wrong.
This movie, this version is a kind of legendary now as a kind of artifact of a movie that gets real truncated down, and a lot of the meat is gutted out of it, and things are moved around in weird spots. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's kind of just there to be a spectacle and not much else. It's not so much about telling a story, but this time around we actually got to see more or less what the real intention was. And this is the when I say an artifact, it kind of set a precedent. This was really the first of its kind in the superhero genre, where we got to see such a dramatically different film based on what was left on the cutting room floor. And of course it would happen again a couple years after this with the Donner cut of Superman 2, which was the thing people had been begging for forever that we never thought we'd get to see. And these things back then were kind of pipe dreams, and now that still happens, where those like cuts of things that people know, or cuts people want of movies that they know there was a lot more shot for, and that were massively compromised things. And the most famous of those was the Snyder cut, which we sort of kind of got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now they're whole movements.
Yeah, about all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Austin, I'm trying to decide what the focus of this should be, because of course I've talked about this before. I've done a commentary on this and reviewed it, and I kind of want to focus a little bit more on the story as it is, were this movie to have come out basically the way it is, as opposed to spending too much time pointing out this part was in the theatrical cut and this part wasn't, and rehashing too much of that. That's kind of what I want to do with it.
That's what I assumed, because I don't know, it's like BVS, where it's like, I mean, this is the full movie. Like, let's just talk about it the way it is, as opposed to, well, okay, this was cut, this was cut. Obviously, you have to get that out of the way, but
I think, especially at the start, we should talk a little bit about the imperfectness of this cut. Because I do think it's a little bit like the Donner cut, in that the best version, the best cut of this was never made, right? Oh, okay. Because in my opinion, okay, well, I'll just make that point and talk about it when we start then. Because Mark Steven Johnson wanted to show us pretty much everything he made, and I think a lot of things were added back in that it doesn't need. That, like, you could still make a much tighter film out of this.
So you think it is the Snyder cut in that way?
Yeah, absolutely, I do, and I think he would agree with that.
Even the BVS cut.
To be honest with you, yeah, I think it's got some pacing issues that it wouldn't have if the studio had made the right kind of mandates about what should have been cut, as opposed to, like, cutting it for time while still keeping the story together, as opposed to just putting everything in the kitchen sink back in it.
Mm-hmm. And I will say right away before we start, because obviously, people talk about it a lot with BVS.
Yeah.
I think with that is just a movie where there's just more. Like, it doesn't feel like an improved movie. It's just there's more of it. While I think this is an improved movie.
Well, and it's also a different movie.
Yes.
There are scenes with that are entirely contradictory to the theatrical version, to the point where they do sometimes the opposite of what that movie does. Particularly, of course, with Matt and Elektra on the roof. Jesse Surfies says it was 03, but close. Okay, so late 03. This is released on DVD. And a cool cover.
I don't know. What's the cover of this versus the theatrical one?
Oh, you're not looking at me right now. Let me set this up so you can see what I'm showing you. But yeah, so it came in a slipcase. So the slipcase, this is at least how I bought it from Walmart. So the slipcase had the same image that the regular DVD did, and then when you take it off, it's the logo emblazoned on black.
Oh, yes, I have seen that, yeah. No, that is a cool cover.
I just like the minimalism of that cover. I think that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I hope at some point...
That reminds me, I forgot to send you a cover thing I saw today.
I'd love to get a steelbook of this. I wish they'd make that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think this movie is well liked by enough people that it would be worthy of a cool release on Blu-ray or 4K. I mean, like Punisher, Warzone got one.
I was just about to say Warzone just got one, and it's like a really nice cover.
I know, it's awesome. I wanted to get that when we did our show, and I couldn't get it in time. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, what were you saying you wanted to send me?
Oh, it has nothing to do with this. I'll send it to you later. But there was a cover thing I saw you today and was like, man, look at how much you've degraded in terms of cover things.
Oh, man. And movie posters.
Yeah. Yeah, this was for books, but you can say it with movies, too.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into this. Again, if you can watch it with us and line it up with us, get past the menus, or if somehow you're streaming it, I don't know if it's available for rental anywhere, get it to timestamp 0. Make sure that, just like with X2, you're just looking at the 20th Century Fox logo. And I guess it always kind of escapes me that both of these movies are put out by the same studio. I kind of forget about that sometimes.
Yeah, I think there was talk at one point of crossing over not just FF and X-Men, but also Daredevil.
And I was thinking about it as just maybe X-Men and FF could have been in the same universe, but Daredevil could have been there too. Mm-hmm. And that it would have been interesting if that had happened, because you would have had a shared universe before MCU. And all things being equal, if MCU had still happened, a lot of the stuff that we wanted to see there would have been together, but somewhere else. And then Spider-Man would be just the only thing Sony had.
Well, no, because I was about to say with this, like, sometimes I think people forget that it's Fox. Mm-hmm. I think people often forget that Ghost Rider was Sony.
Oh, was it? I guess I
Yeah.
forgot about that too. Okay, so Spider-Man and Ghost Rider could have been in the same universe,
Which would have
I
been the
guess.
most awesome cinematic universe because, of course,
The Spider-Man Ghost Rider. It would have been the Spirits of Vengeance universe.
it would have been One More Day, except the only person he goes to is Ghost Rider.
It's hilarious. Let me read this super chat by Chewbacca's Lover real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get into the movie. This one is significantly longer than the theatrical cut, so if you're staying up with us, strap in. We'll be 2 in the morning. More than that at this point. We'll try to get started pretty quick. Chewbacca's Lover. Kevin Smith wrote a Daredevil script that was supposed to be directed by Chris Columbus back in 1997. Chris Columbus was a big comic geek. Maybe a shame that Columbus never got to make a superhero movie. I'd be interested to see what that would look like.
Columbus,
I don't feel like Daredevil is right for that guy.
I don't either. I was about to say that. Columbus, I think, almost did a few superhero movies. But at the same time, because Chris Columbus is very, like, work-for-hire director,
Yeah.
I also don't know how different, like, a Chris Columbus Marvel movie would have been than some of the ones we got in the early 2000s or even into the MCU.
You don't really see him as, like, an auteur director with his own style.
No, and I'm not saying he's a bad director.
No, he's a good director.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. But I don't think of him as, like an auteur. Like, I think he's very, like, workman director, which is what I think a lot of these movies had. So
just based on his track record, I just think he would be better suited for something aimed more at children and families. Like,
he would have been a way better choice for FF than Tim Story was.
I like that.
Yeah.
But I would even be okay seeing him do, or would have been fine seeing him do like a Superman or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Potentially.
Yeah. Maybe like Iron Man in the early 2000s.
But that's interesting. I guess I didn't know Kevin Smith had written a script, and if that was 97, that was right around his run, was it not?
I'm not sure exactly.
Or is that later? I forget. I'm pretty sure, though, that Kevin Smith has his cameo in this movie because he wrote on Daredevil.
I think so, yeah.
So I'm pretty sure. I don't know. 97, 98 sticks out in my mind. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't. I need to read more Daredevil. I need to get back to the Miller run because I'm kind of reading through it.
Yeah.
That way, but I need to get back to it because I really like it. It's really good. But...
It is. It's great. Yeah, this has really put me in the mood for Daredevil again. I started going back and reading Man Without Fear, and I might try to do a review of that soon.
Oh, hit me up for that because I would definitely do that with you.
Okay, well, a 5-issue miniseries, pretty easy to knock out.
Exactly. I actually almost started it today because I was like, man, I'm in a mood for Daredevil.
I started it last night. I got halfway through the second issue, and I didn't have time to read any farther. But
and while we're there on that super chat, we should probably also mention that script starts as a movie script, and that's 93 that book comes out. So,
oh yes, and I didn't know that until yesterday when somebody brought that up.
Well, I told you about it the other day, so maybe you're thinking of that, but
or maybe I wasn't paying any attention to you, and then somebody else said it, and then that's probably what happened. Guys, sorry about the long preamble again. Let's go ahead and get into the movie. I'm excited to watch it with you guys and talk about it, and away we go. Make sure once again that you're at timestamp 0. If you need to know where we're at, there is a timer on my screen right now. If you're watching on YouTube, here we go, everybody. Please press play right now. This time it will not be a blind commentary.
Yeah.
Literally or otherwise. I prepared for this, and I'm not wearing a blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a Daredevil commentary with a blindfold before.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that today. I was like, I got like an hour to kill. I'll pop this on. Which was a very, very bizarre experience because I wasn't watching the movie.
Well, and you were on the same playing field that we were.
Exactly. I was like, that's kind of funny.
Okay, so having watched this again, just right away I'm going to ask you the question. How did it hold up for you?
I think I've seen this movie enough as a kid that it was like exactly what I expected. I'll say, 'cause this is one of those movies where like I watch it and it just takes me back to a place. Like I just think about like, being at my mom's on the weekend and going to Blockbuster or whatever and picking up the movies for the weekend, and we'd watch this a lot. And so I texted her today and I was like, "Oh, I'm rewatching Daredevil. It's so 2000s," and she was like, "Yep, that it is."
So I used to have that. It used to really take me back to when I first saw it. This was a real impressionable movie for me. Made a big impression on me, and it made me want to go move to a big city and
Oh, interesting.
like live in downtown New York or something. I kind of became obsessed with the big city idea because of this movie, and
yeah.
The last couple times I've seen it, I feel like the seams have been showing a little bit, and some of that was because the last time we did a commentary on this, that's how long I've been doing this. We have multiple commentaries on this now. It was shortly after I think the first season of the TV show came out, and it was really difficult to have historical perspective, not kind of compare them and be like, this is like the prototype for something much better, and kind of indisputably without saying that's better, but this is
they're doing a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, but this is of course from a different time. It's a different take on it. It's more cartoony and over the top comic book, and that had the benefit of a lot of years with a lot of superhero entertainment coming out, a lot of people buying into these things as more legitimate stories. It had lots of time to tell its story, and it was for adults and didn't have to think about the kids, which this did.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not fair to compare them, but it might be impossible not to subconsciously, at the very least. And so I have the separation now where I'm not taken back to high school, taken back to kind of childhood like I used to be, in the same way that I am with some other things. By the way, his credit just came out up. The guy playing Jack Murdoch's name is David Keith. It's Keith David, yeah. But his name is flipped.
He's the reverse.
He's the reverse of Spawn.
Bizarro Keith David. I wanted to say too earlier, the opening credits of this movie are very Spider-Man 1, right?
Yeah, which is interesting because all of this is being made, while that movie is like halfway or better into production. So like they're not. It's easy to look at this and assume that it's following in Spider-Man's footsteps, but it's not like some of the movies in the 90s that were directly following 89. It couldn't have. But like they're making this movie
like that would have been late in the game, though. No.
Well, what I was going to say is, Johnson talks in his commentary about how they're in the middle of filming this when Spider-Man 1 comes out.
Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. Like that, I think is probably looking at Spider-Man, just because that would have been one of the last things they did.
Yeah,
I'd imagine
a little bit, but it's well into production before they can even see, anything from that film.
Mm-hmm. No, of course, but for something like your opening titles, that's probably done like quite a bit after principal photography.
Yeah,
so they're not filming anything for it.
But Johnson claims that the idea for those titles was the first thing he wrote down.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it could have just been maybe shots of the city with the braille over the names, and then it becomes that kind of blue look after Spider-Man. Who knows?
Bob Behind $5 super chat. He says, "I wanted to see this as a kid, but I wasn't allowed to because it was too dark. Wasn't allowed to see 03 Hulk for the same reason." You youngins.
I wish I had that as a kid. I hated 03 Hulk growing up. Like, a lot. Like, I would go to friends' houses, and they'd be like, "Do you want to watch Hulk?" And I'd be like, "No. If you put on Hulk, I'm calling for my mom to pick me up."
So when I first watched this, I was like, okay, how different is this movie really going to be? I mean, I realized the back of the box claims it has a subplot with Coolio, which is weird, and the reason I bought it. And then...
Coolio? I gotta buy this.
But then it opened... Well, I was just like, they cut out an entire subplot? That's crazy. And then it opens the exact same way, and I was like, okay, how different is this really going to be? And then it's not very long before we start seeing massive changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Like I said earlier, I feel like there is a better cut of this to be made, and I'll point out some places where I think we're kind of just throwing stuff back in because we shot it. It's probably not what would go in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the definitive version of the two we have, certainly, because it puts all the story back in, and there is also quite a bit of action that was cut unjustly that is that is back also. But then there's places where I think even the action could have been trimmed down a little bit. Not because it's too violent, of course, which was the initial reason that some of it was cut, and then some of it was also for time, but just because you have some scenes that kind of run on too long.
Yeah, definitely. So we just passed by, I think it's Tony Jr. I can't remember what the kid's name is from The Sopranos, but this movie's very post Sopranos. um, Especially, with both his casting and Ben Urich.
Yeah, and that's not a thing that I appreciated because I never saw that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely.
But of course, everybody has a lot more to do here, and you understand why entire characters are here in a way you didn't in the first place, because they just kind of pop in and they're kind of pointless. So like it is much tighter in that way. I think pretty much everything that's added back in with Matt Murdock and his dad when he's a kid needs to be here.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and because it's been so long since I watched the theatrical cut, and I'm glad I started your Marvel Mania on it, because you guys talk about how like, all of this is cut, and I didn't realize it. Because one of the things I was thinking while we were watching this last night is, oh, like they actually do a really good job, I think, with his dad, and like I feel bad when he dies. Like it doesn't feel rushed, but I guess in the theatrical cut it was.
Yeah. Have you ever actually sat through the theatrical cut?
No, that was all I watched as a kid.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I'm sorry.
It's
Something
been
about
so
what you
long.
just said confused me.
No, it's been so long since
I see.
watched it. That there's obviously moments where I'm like, okay, I don't really remember this. This is obviously extended.
No.
But then there's certain things that I'm not having that.
That transition is weird because I don't think it means anything, and you kind of want to read into a symbol like that. But it's like we took the moon and then we put it in a biohazard sign. It doesn't really mean anything. I think it's just circles. I don't know.
I think.
There's not
mean,
really
I
a circle
will give
motif in this movie, so.
I will give this movie. I think it does have a visual flair in a lot of places, and like, yeah, that transition was cool. I agree. I don't think it's saying anything.
It doesn't mean anything, but it's cool.
But it's cool looking.
Yeah.
And that's just a place where you have a music video director where I think he's kind of coming at it with that kind of mindset sometimes.
Do you think it has a consistent style? Because there's certainly a lot of places where it's stylish, like dated or otherwise.
Yeah, I would say so.
I think there's places where it visually gets inconsistent, and we'll talk about it, particularly with color palettes.
Mm.
So I won't do this too much, but I'm going to bring this one up because I can't decide which is more effective.
Yeah.
In this version, he drops his report card. Yeah. And then he goes and sees that his dad is an enforcer for Fallon. And he so in the comics it's the Fixer. And he in the theatrical version sees his dad, is wanting to find him to show him how well he's done, because his dad just told him he needs to get great grades, become a doctor or a lawyer or something, and then he drops the report card in the puddle as he's leaving. I actually think that's maybe more effective. I think I like that better.
I don't know. I like how it plays here. Like, I like that he goes here and he just already knows, and like he drops his report card in disappointment, and then when he actually sees his dad doing that, then he runs away, and it's not like that extra moment. I don't know. I like how it plays here.
Yeah, maybe both work fine.
Yeah,
one of the things
I don't think it's an issue either way.
One of the things I've always been impressed with this movie is sound design.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to get a really good surround sound going down here in the bunker, because I've always wanted to. I mean, it wouldn't be the only reason to buy that, but I've always wanted to re-experience this scene like in the theater, because it hits you all over the place. Like the sounds that they choose to put in the right side and the left side, and then center. It's really cool, and they do a good job of putting you in Matt's head and making you feel like you're developing these powers at the same time he is.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is one of those sequences that I'm sure if we had some of that technology for home media, would be the like, hey, come check out my home stereo situation. Then you throw this on.
Oh, I guarantee you they had this movie blasted at Best Buy
Yeah, exactly. And Walmart.
There is some kind of TV and prequel reimagining choices in this movie that kind of jumped out at me this time in a way they hadn't really before. And maybe you'll go back to other videos I've done on this movie and I've talked about some of this, but I don't remember that. I feel like this is the first time I've been not sure about things like Jack the Devil Murdoch.
Yeah,
Like,
it's one of those. It's too cute.
can he not? Yeah, can he not come up with things on his own? Like, it kind of doesn't mean anything for his father. It seems sloppy on a storytelling level.
When I
Where
said to you off camera that the devil thing is what makes it feel TV, but I don't like. I'm not thinking it's like that TV aspect is how we get there. It's we're doing that '89 thing where Wilson Fisk kills his dad, and so we're going to kind of expand that to also be his dad is where he gets his name, and then that's just also where TV or what TV normally does with it. But, like, I feel like that's the starting place, and it kind of builds out in a way they probably weren't thinking.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is what makes it kind of worse for me. It's sloppy because Jack Murdoch makes a deal with the devil. He's not the devil.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, we have a throwaway line to get that image in there, where it's, well, he kind of struck terror in his opponents, like he put the devil in him or whatever. But the devil in him.
Well, it would probably make that the I'm not a bad guy thing better if his dad wasn't called the devil. Because I do really like the whole I'm not the bad guy thing in that Matt doesn't understand that he's made himself into into Jimmy Fallon and the guy who killed his dad.
Yeah, and that's where, pardon me, the man without fear motif is obviously tied real directly to the idea of the Daredevil. Like, he's not afraid of anything. He can go to a very dark place and, like, really straddle that line. So, like, is he the devil, or does he just use that part of him to do something positive? Kind of like Batman using fear to instill fear for the right reasons.
Okay, so here's a question.
But maybe it shouldn't come from his dad. Like, and there's some other things like that too, like the water coffin. You need these like really complicated, convoluted explanations for how he lives a regular life, which I kind of appreciate trying to get creative with it. But, like, was there no such thing as noise canceling headphones in 2003? Like, there's not other ways to accomplish that.
That probably would have been the more TV version of it, just because the water thing is at least more cinematic and, like, visual, I guess.
He's just wearing, yeah.
But here's a question for you.
That is one of the better Stan Lee cameos, by the way. I just want to say that real quick.
It's like top 3. That's a great one.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I like how subtle it is. It's really classy.
And it sucks that it transitions into this scene, there's a few moments that I think are, like, genuinely secondhand cringe. Like, even as a kid, I thought that. And this is one of them.
Yeah. And it didn't used to play for me that way. Like, this is one of those things where this felt modern and not silly when I was younger. And maybe it would have if I was pushing 40 in 2003, but, like, 17-year-old me was totally taken in by all of this, and I didn't even think the playground fight was silly. I will, if I was ever okay with a playground fight, I'm turning against that now. I am finally completely on the side of that. It's just too silly.
Yeah, no, I think even as a kid, I thought this stuff in the playground thing was too silly. This scene's also just edited really weird, I think.
It is. It's kind of fun that he walks off with his blind cane, I guess. Like, yeah. there's nobody around to watch him do that.
I mean, I'm also fine with
weird that he's doing that.
With him beating them up. It's like the stick slapping thing is really goofy.
He goes against the kid's face. Some of it is just the way where the camera is.
Yeah.
It's too music video.
I also don't buy that would hurt that much. But anyways, back to the name thing.
It doesn't look like it hurts.
No, it doesn't. Back to the name thing though. So if we were gonna do something where he got like an element of his name from his dad, do you think it maybe would have been better if he was Jack the Fearless Murdoch? Like, and that's where you get the man without fear thing?
I don't know. That sounds a little cutesy too.
I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying, do you
Yeah.
think that would be better than the Devil? Because that's at least not the whole, like you said, the making a deal with the devil thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, it's almost he combines his enemies and his dad into like one thing that is Daredevil. I don't know. I'm
It is
going off
crazy
what
this
movie's
image
doing.
was cut out of the theatrical version.
The devil's shadow.
Yeah, that he's walking in a shadow and all of that. Like,
There's some really good
that
shadow
movie
work.
is not allowed to breathe at all. Now, I will also say that cut it watches like it's what's the word I'm looking for? It watches like it's just organized differently, where it wants to get the origin out of the way real quick so that it can tell the story. This is a lot more like a Donner Superman kind of
Yeah.
organization or format, I guess I should say. It's not exactly like 3-act epic in the same way, because you don't have that middle. It is 3-act, but like you don't have the middle portion where you have the like teenage version that goes and does something like you do with Superman.
Yeah, but I also think the first. I guess it's not technically the first act. 'Cause I'm sure. I don't know. I don't know.
But I guess what I
anyways,
mean is this feels like we're telling a story, not just giving background. And in the theatrical version, this is all just background.
that's what I was about to say. Is I think what this captures is that maybe not to the same degree as like other things, but that kind of Twilight Zone-y element that a lot of Marvel origins have. But you get like the full tragedy story here, and then we'll move on to the hero story. And I think this movie does a good job capturing that.
That's a great point. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to say Twilight Zone.
I just think a lot of the best Marvel origins are Twilight Zone episodes.
Well, and that's what I do really like about this choice, where it ends up being an origin movie and not an origin movie once you really get into it. It's kind of cool that it can do both, and I think more movies maybe should have looked at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really just like Batman Begins does that to some degree, and I think that's still like the best superhero origin movie, because it's full on origin, but it takes its time with the stuff before he puts the costume on, and it's not scared that you're going to lose interest. And this version of it's not afraid of that either. The theatrical version, you have to get to the costume 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
And this is not worried about that. And this kid carries the film well enough that I'm not saying it should have done this, but like I think half of it could have been this kid and you'd buy it.
No, I think this is a really good kid actor. No, I agree with that. I think he does a really good job.
If I were gonna set this up more like Donner Superman, your middle act would be Stick.
It is unfortunate that we don't have Stick in this movie, because the origin of how he's able to fight and stuff is part of that kind of silly, like embarrassing stuff.
Yeah, that's true. And I don't know if I buy that he can do everything he can just training himself, being blind. Like you do, especially with that handicap, you kind of need somebody to help you out. And I also don't know if I buy that he would be motivated enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean to say everything has to be just like the comics. Like I'm getting to that place somewhat because I think I've seen it done better, with the comics and with the TV show.
But I also think that this, just him training himself, is getting into that Michael Bay and the new animated Turtles thing of, well, Splinter knows martial arts because he read it in a book or he watched movies. Like it's that kind of a thing, right?
No, that's a good point. In the comics, or at least with Man Without Fear, I don't remember if he did it this way, particularly before that. But Stick is training Matt Murdock before his dad dies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
He's already on that path.
Yeah. Well, then it also becomes weird retroactively that Stick is in the Elektra movie.
I know. It's so backwards. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? Uh, the transitions moving through the city also make it feel kind of TV. I always go back to Birds of Prey. This is the same year as that, and that all feel it's exactly what that show was doing. Chewbacca's Lover, $2 super chat. Katie Holmes and Jessica Alba were almost Elektra. Somebody said even Jolene Blaylock from Enterprise was almost
And somebody
Elektra.
in the chat, I think Bob the Hun said Elijah Dushku as well.
I remember hearing that she had been considered. That might have been that's a more off the comic page choice.
Oh, okay.
I would say more so anyway.
Yeah.
And I know you don't like Jennifer Garner in this role at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really. I was so on my Letterboxd review when I watched this yesterday, I made a joke of what is it with Greek characters when we adapt them? We give like they just have really bad performances and really bad line deliveries of liar.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you and I are seeing different movies when it comes to that part of it. Like, I don't think she is the right the right casting choice for that character, but then they're not really adapting that character. So, but I don't have a huge problem with her performance, with what they gave her. But that might be a place where I'm a little bit blinded by the stuff that really grabbed me with this movie, because I don't mind saying that I was impressed with her when this first came out. I have nostalgia for that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. One of the things because I liked her as a kid, and I always remembered my mom would like make jabs at her whenever she's on screen. And rewatching it last night, I was like, oh, I get it now. Like it was one of those like I get, this thing I didn't understand as a kid.
Interesting. Well, the thing is, I think maybe she's playing more over the top because she's seeing what the villains are doing.
And yeah, and that is possible.
And she thinks she's in a more heightened comic world than the movie sometimes wants to be, which I think is a little bit of an issue with this, where it's a little at odds sometimes. It's a little uneven in like just how comic book, just how heightened is the world itself.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, when I was talking about color palette issues and stuff, this is a place where I feel like we're laying on the like bleak dourness of this location too hard, where it almost feels like we're in a different movie.
What I think it is, and I had this.
I'm taken completely out by this.
This is a first-time director trying to be David Fincher.
Oh,
where he's trying to capture that look, I think.
Well, and he is a first-time director.
Yeah, but I think that's what he's going for. Is I think he's trying to do like a David Fincher thing in that scene.
It's weird because I've seen movies that change colors for different scenes, but still feel like the same movie, and I don't think this is always effective at that.
Well, that was the green scene. I think what
that was the green scene.
I think what helps is that most of it's blue, so like that's why I feel like most of it stands together. But there's definitely.
See, I don't have that. I don't think it's got a singular color. You say most of it's blue. I don't know if that's true.
Especially because when we get to a certain point, because whenever it's night, it's blue, and we're gonna hit a certain point where everything's night.
So here we've got our obligatory suit-up scene.
Yeah,
it's Schumacher's Daredevil right now.
And you had a new realization about his suit after we talked about it.
Yeah, well, you sort of convinced me of it. Go ahead.
That his suit is just a leather jacket sewn together with like leather pants and gloves and whatnot.
I still submit I don't really have a problem with what the suit looks like. Oh, you know what? I have a really cool like 10-inch figure of this version, and I was gonna bring that down and show it to you, and I totally forgot about it.
I think I've seen it in other videos, but it's been a long time.
Yeah,
so it would've been cool
it's in a different part of my house. So
I also don't hate this design of Daredevil. Like, this is one of the things I will give it over the show is I like this design more than the TV show. But they're also both Daredevil suits are really rooted in the times they were made, and I ultimately don't really like either. Like, I'm waiting for the definitive Daredevil costume on screen.
No, and I think you're right about that, and that might be another place where I do have a little bit of nostalgia blinders, but when this came out, I appreciated that it looked different than other superhero suits at the time. Like it's not just doing Batman again. Now you and I talked about this off camera, and we kind of came to, oh well, it's leather though, like Blade, like the X-Men costumes.
Yeah,
and I hadn't really had that thought
until I got older. Like it was as a kid, I was like, oh, like they made him look like Daredevil,
but it's not black, so that helps.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps that it's red. But as I got older, it was like, oh, but it is still in that vein because it is just a leather jumpsuit that he's wearing.
I came to appreciate that Mark Steven Johnson actually has a lot of reverence for this character in the comics and just tried to shove everything in 2.5 hours because you don't know if you're going to get a sequel, and he was a little bit too fanboyish about the way he made it. Like, in some ways, this is handled kind of the way a fan film would be if enough money was thrown at it. Don't you think? Where it's like, well, we're making Daredevil, so we want to see, like, for ourselves making our fan film, we got to see Elektra, we got to see Kingpin, we got to see Bullseye, we got to get all the major origin stuff in there. We got to get glimpses of his mom, even if we don't have time to do any of that. The audience won't know what that is, but who cares? We want to see it, et cetera, et cetera. And there's
I hadn't had that thought.
You see a lot more of that, of course, with this cut. Like, it's not just called Josie's Bar. You actually see Josie. She's a comic book character.
Yeah. No, I think this is something we're starting to do a lot more now, because this is also what Black Panther and Aquaman do, where you kind of shove in everything.
Yeah, Aquaman especially. I mean, that's the biggest example of it now, where it feels like you put a season, if not 3, with that movie of television all in a film, and this certainly has that, but it has to really cheat at getting you to things like the tear down the system plot in bringing down the Kingpin at the end.
Yeah.
It's better than the theatrical version, obviously, because there is an explanation. It doesn't even matter what it is. Because in the theatrical version, it's words out on the Kingpin. When the hell did that happen? In this, and it's fun listening to Johnson's commentary because he complains about it the same way I always have, where he's like, I mean, how did that happen? But then in this, there's an explanation for how we get to the Kingpin, and it's what the whole B story is about, with Coolio, and they're trying to get him off for a crime he didn't commit. But it's too easy because Kingpin does not cover his tracks very well for being the head of all the crime in New York. It doesn't feel like the cops or the government or anything is corrupt in the way it would have to be. Like, there's too many good people in this city, it feels like. Mm-hmm. And when we get there, it's just too simple of a detective story, where it feels almost like baby's first noir, or baby's first detective story. And then
definitely has that.
On top of all of that, Daredevil still finds out who the Kingpin is, not because of the case he's been working on, but because Bullseye tells him who it is for no good reason.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get there.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to say with this scene...
I'm sorry for talking over all this action, because it's some of the best stuff in the movie, but...
And that's what I was about to say, is this is a lot more ambitious than a lot of the superhero movies of this time. And there's some really cool shots. Like, I like the shot where he kicks the whiskey bottle into the light.
Yeah. My favorite thing is the ceiling fan.
Yeah. Some of that, I think, just like the CGI is like, this hasn't aged super well.
I don't know. It's cool storyboarding though, man. Like he gets up under the ceiling fan and he spins around with it, and that's all fun. Yeah. And then just the look of the pool tables on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know how much sense, like, a lot of that is style over substance, right? Like, I don't know how much sense it makes that he lets Quesada get here, because Johnson talks about that in the commentary too, and he's like, we just did it because it looked cool, but he was kind of questioning it too. I appreciate, by the way, that retroactively, talking about this, he's pretty self-critical. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's not just talking the whole time about how great his piece is. He's like, we made some mistakes, like...
But I mean, I think he kind of has to be. It's his first movie. He's going to make mistakes.
Well, you wouldn't have to be. Some people have egos just because they got to make a movie. Like
That's true.
it's kind of nice hearing that. Is all I'm saying.
But if you are a human being, then you should be like,
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't praise people for things that they just should do, but I appreciated that. But he mentions that Quesada is, and by the way, all these people have names of like comic artists and writers that worked on Daredevil. Does that take you out? Does that irritate you?
No, I mean, I don't know. It's the type of thing that only us fans are gonna really pick up on, and it's not like standing in the way of anything. Like it's perfectly fine as an Easter egg, I think.
And I mean, there's a ton of it.
Mm.
But I like I like the reverence for not just the comics, but the people that made them.
Yeah, well, I also feel like it works both ways, because if you don't like Quesada, well, he's about to get cut in half.
Oh my god. I gotta ask you the big. Well, I was just gonna say, Quesada's getting away, and Daredevil is just kind of taunting him, and he's standing there outside of the bar, like he totally could have gotten him there, but he waits till he gets here. They talk about it in the. By the way, that commentary is very entertaining because it's Mark Steven Johnson talking with Avi Arad, yeah, and Arad doesn't like the choice that Daredevil lets this guy die. Even though the arc is the I'm not the bad guy thing, and Johnson's argument for it, even though Johnson is still not sure if they made the right call with it, in that commentary, and he says, well, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't really have an arc where you wouldn't have anything to come back from, really. But the problem with it for me is that I don't think we make it clear enough if he let the man die or if it was premeditated. Because the way they talk about it in the commentary, it's like it's a happy accident and he just stands there and lets it happen. But the fact that he's following him like a serial killer or something, you know, the way he almost lures him, into this train station, and it feels almost premeditated. And like maybe, and the other thing is, I don't know if he's killed people or let people die before.
Yeah.
And I have a hard, in the theater, I assumed he had a long history of doing that.
Well, it could just be that thing of like he fights criminals, and when they get knocked into a place where they're gonna die, he doesn't help them.
When they get knocked down, they don't get up again.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like, he's taking out a gun and killing this man.
Yeah, that's true. But he's acting a little bit like a slasher villain.
I'm not gonna kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Yeah. Why is that always with trains?
Yeah.
It's always with trains.
What's the deal with trains?
So how do you feel about it for the sake of this movie, though? Like, does it bother you that Daredevil starts from a place where he's maybe killing, or at least is more okay with it, and then he sort of comes back from that and does the obligatory I'm not going to kill my main villain thing, or are you okay with it in this context?
I think his arc works in this movie. I think it's fine. I can understand taking issue with him killing people, because I can see, somebody making the argument of, well, you don't like that they do the same thing with him in, say, BVS, for example. But I think it works here in a way it doesn't there.
Yeah, I also don't see Daredevil as stringent of a character in that, like, he would never ever kill anyone in the same way that Batman or Superman are that way generally, right? Like I feel like it's a more.
Well, and the first thing I ever read with Daredevil was Man Without Fear, and he accidentally kills somebody in that book too. So like that was even after this movie, the first comic I read has him kill someone. I think I'm remembering that right. I think he kills somebody in that book.
Yeah, I mean, if he was just actively going out like the Punisher with a gun, that's not Daredevil. But a more ambiguous Daredevil that says sometimes it is justice when somebody gets what's coming to them, and I'm going to stand there and let it happen. I feel like that's maybe a valid take on this character.
Yeah.
And that's why I just think it's too ambiguous at the beginning. I just want to know what the history is. I want to know how long he's been letting that happen, or if there's very many examples of it before that.
Certainly, yeah. We talked in the last video, the X-Men 2 one, about
Yeah.
cool uses of power. Um, I just wanted to briefly mention at the beginning of the scene, I think it's really cool that he's got like the 3 locks, and since he's blind, he just spins and he can hear the locks click.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, and I like that's something that he specifically would have to do with his ability. I don't think like a regular blind person could pull that off.
Well, no, of course. I mean, that's just his superheroing.
So I want to complain about this, and I've probably brought this up before, but we are too inconsistent in this one moment with how we've been presenting Daredevil's perspective and how he sees things for the audience to understand what is happening right now. It's the only time we do this, where instead of his sonar vision, you see a girl like physically completely presented dying right next to him. And the first time I saw this, I was so confused. And it takes too long before you really know what happened there. I don't get from that this is happening across the street and he's hearing it.
So I think that's a really cool moment, but if you're gonna do it, you should do it more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
You have to make that clearer, and yeah, like it's artistic. I like it, but you have to keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And that is also very confusing. What just happened?
Well, a nun came to him in his sleep.
Was it a dream? Was it real? What actually happened there? An audience that doesn't know his mom is a nun is going to have no idea what the point of that was at any point in the film. They're never going to know. It's just for the audience. And here's the thing. You can put her in the background of the church and let it be an Easter egg. You can't do that.
Yeah. Or if you're going to do that, also have her be in the background of the church and maybe get a moment.
Okay, so one of the places where the movie gets indulgent in the director's cut in scenes running too long is Johnson loves these scenes where he and Favreau are improvising comedic dialogue, and some of them just go on too long.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
This scene was actually cut correctly, I think, in the theatrical version, and they had more material, so he just let it keep going. He said there used to be a 10-minute cut of this scene, and I'm like, now it's starting to sound like Ghostbusters 2016, folks.
I mean, I think most scenes in movies like this, like your kind of big comedic character, probably has that. But it's just you just got to know when to cut it.
Yeah. But sometimes you write more of these things, and these guys, I think, improvised the majority of the scenes. And a lot of them work, don't get me wrong, but you have to cut them at the right place.
Well, I'm sure they probably like.
See, in the theatrical version, that's where that cuts, and I don't need any more of this. Especially because the Fight Club line doesn't work at all.
I mean, you can watch movies with the closed captioning. Like,
I guess so, but it just screams improvised.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't jump out to me because you said it. I think maybe between streams.
No, I think maybe I said it I don't know where I said it.
Yeah, but like
maybe it was recorded.
He can still have seen Fight Club. He's just not literally, but like he can watch it with the descriptive video.
Yeah, no, I know.
You're just prejudiced against blind people.
I'm splitting hairs here. I get it.
Never tell me you've seen anything.
Okay, so couple things that don't work at all that are hilarious. We're playing real fast and loose with how his powers ought to work, right? He smelled her coming with the door closed. And how would you know it was a young, attractive woman? It could be an 80-year-old lady who uses the same perfume.
Because he can hear the curvatures of her body.
Oh my God.
The real question, though...
It is ridiculous, though.
No, it is. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I just needed to hear you say that.
The real thing, though, is whoever suggested that Jennifer Gardner should wear these contacts should be beaten with bamboo sticks.
The contacts?
Yeah, because they gave her green contacts, and she looks like she's hulking out in every single scene.
Oh, I don't have that at all.
Yeah, that is not her eye color. It's like, I don't know.
They're not even that green.
They're super green, especially in that scene when she walks in. They're like glowing green.
Is it just my projector? Like I don't see it.
They're not as bad now, but when
I
she
can't even
walks in,
hardly
they're
tell that
glowing.
they're green. I would have thought some kind of like grayish tint or something. I don't know. Doesn't even
No,
look
I
green to
mean
me.
that's more what her actual eyes look like, but um, no, they're really green.
I think
And,
their initial meeting is charming enough. When she says, "What are you?" and he says, "Blind." I think that whole thing is kind of fun and works.
no, that is really fun.
I've never liked the mustard gag, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't need mustard in the drink for him to do the spit take, and it took me like 20 viewings before I understood what the whole deal with the mustard was. Like, it works just as well for Foggy to just be drinking, and then that moment happens, and then he cannot contain himself, and he does a spit take. Why do you need the mustard?
I mean, just because it's like a fun little moment where uh, Matt Murdock messes with Foggy. Even
But
though
I
he's
want to know
blind.
how many other people didn't even realize that that was the reason he spit his drink out. Because it took me
Yeah, I don't know.
forever to catch that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's fine. I think it's funny. But I agree. I think their initial moment. I like the "What are you, blind?" Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cute. And then this scene happens.
Yeah, I mean, I do think they have chemistry. I like them together. Obviously, they thought they did. They got married.
Mhm. But they didn't have enough chemistry to stay married.
Right. There is that whole thing. This is when
Well, it turns
just
into
go to a
Mortal
really
Kombat
weird.
when we're lined up and the camera backs out. Like it should say "fight" right here.
Oh yeah, where it looks like a 2D fighter. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I hadn't had that thought before. When they've got health bars above them.
Yeah, like it should just say "fight" right there.
That's great. I
That
don't
moment
understand why
when they
there's
take off
always
their
a crowd
coats
of
is cool,
children in a
but
scene like this yelling "fight" over and over again when that's what they're doing and they're going to keep doing it.
it should be more like the teachers come out and call the police.
Yeah.
People fight. There's a woman beating up a blind man on school property.
This was your complaint earlier when we were talking about X2, where you said a lot of movies just don't have cops in them.
Yeah. No, I don't. I even as a kid, I got secondhand embarrassment in the scene. Like, why are we doing this? Like,
Yeah, and
it also I think makes him look a little. So okay, you talked about it with Wolverine last time.
yeah.
I think that's a little creepy that he's beating up a woman to get her name. I think that's going a little too
That's
far.
a good point. Here's the thing. I think there's a way to do exactly what they're trying to do in a more realistic and intimate and less ridiculous way. They just need to find a different setting for it. You'd have to contrive it in a different way. It can't just be right after you met in a coffee shop or whatever. But the idea of I like the skeleton of it. I like it on paper. The idea that what these two have in common that could possibly propel them into a meaningful relationship is what we so rarely got in superhero fiction at all, really, up to a point, which
Maybe they
is
could meet in like a gymnastics gym.
they're basically both superheroes, and they can relate to each other, and they work on the same level, like physically and mentally, and they discover that somehow, and that's part of why they get together. And the idea of fighting foreplay or whatever is fine, but like do it in like a boxing ring, or
That's what I was saying. Like maybe they meet in like a gymnastics gym or something. Like I don't know.
yeah.
So, other than just like I'm gonna chase you down the street and then kick your ass unless you give me your name.
Yeah, because in Man Without Fear, young Matt Murdock's favorite place is the gym. Like, what if he still goes to the gym, and she's there, and she's boxing, and he's enamored with her immediately as they start talking, and he asks her name. You could do even the same thing. I'm an outlaw.
Have
She's
her box Foggy like Iron Man 2.
that's hilarious.
Action.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say, do the same thing where like he really wants her name, she won't give it, and he's like, "I'll box you for it." And she's like, "What are you talking about? You're blind." And he's like, "Nah, I can take you." Like, tell me that scene doesn't work. That scene works.
No, that would work better. It's just entirely how it's played. And there's moments
We
in
just
this movie,
fixed it.
there's moments in this movie where I think there are things that work or that should work on paper, but the execution is lacking.
It's execution. You can't just explain it with. You can't do what Avi Arad does in the commentary, where he goes, because he doesn't get why people think that scene is silly.
No, doesn't he say something like?
He goes, "Well, it's foreplay." I'm like, "Well, that doesn't make it good."
Isn't there also a thing where Mark Steven Johnson's like, "Yeah, we should talk about like, this scene, like, and how people feel about it," and Avi Arad's like, whether it's great or like amazing or something like that.
No, that's what he says.
Yeah.
Yep. I think he says like great or stupendous or something. It's hilarious.
It's the greatest Marvel scene ever.
Kingpin killed that guy for no reason.
Well, just because he's Kingpin, he's cool.
Yeah.
Is it weird that we cut to him with like rap music? I questioned that when we were watching. That seemed very Marvel Netflix to me. Where like, I think.
Do you think it's just too typical? Where it's like, oh, he's a black guy. It's got to be rap music.
Yeah, like that. I was like, did we cast a black actor and then go, we have to put rap music in his introduction when that's not the soundtrack of this movie at all?
If he was a big white guy, I don't think it would be that. Now, there's one other song in the soundtrack. If you just listen to the like in and inspired by, that's got a lot of rap in it. But you're right. There's nothing else that sounds exactly like that. But also, the Outlaw song is not in that soundtrack. It's not in there.
But I just wondered, because obviously I'm thinking about Marvel Netflix while I'm watching this, and like I think it gets to the point of like parody, where like especially in Defenders, where it's like we'll cut to Luke Cage in a scene and just rap music will start playing. Where I'm like, at what point does this become racist?
I think it works in Luke Cage.
Yeah,
personally, but
well enough. There's stuff in Defenders that I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I've excised all that from my brain. I don't remember anymore.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a Mexican appetizer, and I still say that all the time. I love that line. I think it's hilarious. Matthew,
I have a friend that hates this movie. Just be like one of the biggest reasons where I'm like, why do you hate this movie?
Yeah,
and he's like, her name is Electra Nachios, and I'm like,
well, that's her name in the comics.
But like that's the comic book name. Like I get that's stupid because it is, but like, I don't know, whatever. It's not a big deal.
They should have just made it Electro Nachos.
I had that with when I was watching Daredevil season 3, and my mom walked in and she just like sat down for a few minutes, and they're like, Inspector Poindexter or whatever, Detective Poindexter, and she just looks at me and goes, seriously, his name's Poindexter? And I'm like, I don't know, it's a comic book name, I'm stuck with it.
Do you have what I do with this, where it's actually kind of fascinating and really surprising how easy it is to cut this subplot out?
The Coolio one?
Yeah. Like, there's these clear places where you can end a scene like they did with the theatrical version, and if you left it going, now we get into the scenes. Like, it's weird how easy it is to take it out and put it back in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does have that where you can see the seams where you can cut it.
It's very strange.
Mm-hmm. It is weird, yeah. People in the chat are also saying that they love the Kingpin introduction. I also really like the Kingpin introduction. I just wondered if that song choice was too typical.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I like it ironically or whatever, but it always stuck with me. I mean, I laugh at it. Yeah, it's great.
And Michael Clark Duncan is really good.
He's so good.
Yeah.
It's just like with a lot of things with this, I wish he got more to do. Even in this cut, like, yes, we introduce him, being menacing and getting to see his strength and what he can really do and all of that. But like, he somehow worked his way up from a lowly henchman to running all the crime in the city. I need a little bit more detail about that. You don't have to give me a bunch of flashbacks and tell me everything, but how did he do that? Mm-hmm. He seems too aggressive and impulsive and up in everybody's faces, and he's not that careful. How did this man do that?
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely fair.
He doesn't seem like a master manipulator like comic book Wilson Fisk. Maybe he is, but I don't see it on the screen.
When I get the sense that he is, it's just we're not seeing how he became that.
Yeah. But I don't know that Duncan is playing it very calculating.
I think to an extent, like, it's mainly in terms of what he's doing and like the way he kind of moves everything around. I don't know. I like my reaction to this is I think D'Onofrio is better than comic book Kingpin, and Michael Clark Duncan is comic book Kingpin. It's kind of my reaction to both.
Oh wow, I don't have that. I think he's playing a, you know, psychologically watered down version, but part of that's just because we're not.
Oh well, sure.
We're not getting any of that. Do you just mean in his performance? Is that what you're saying? Like,
yeah, like I feel like I'm getting something closer to, like, obviously he needs more screen time, but like I don't have.
Because I think Duncan has a take, but he's not getting a lot to do, and Johnson does not have a take. Johnson just put the Kingpin in his movie.
And that might be why I'm thinking of him as comic book Kingpin, is just because they just put Kingpin in the movie.
Now, I do have to say, for a guy that did not get enough money to make this movie the proper way in some cases, with how ambitious it is. Maybe it's too ambitious for the budget they've got. Well, there's no maybe about it. We needed to cut half the characters probably, but or at least Elektra, But it is impressive that we got such an entertaining film with a guy that had never directed before, who's a writer-director. It's shocking to me that he was allowed to write this by himself.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And there's some cringy writing
and track record.
It's got issues certainly, but it could have turned out a great deal worse. And I don't blame him at all for like the dodgy CG and all of that. Like, they did not have enough to work with. This is like 90s. This is the live action equivalent of 90s X-Men when it comes to that. Not enough time, not enough money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they did the best they could with what they had, and I also am more sympathetic about it because he points out nearly all the places where I think the full CG characters look terrible, and talks about how terrible they look.
Yeah, I mean, he would know. Like, I'm glad that he's self-aware enough to say, like, yeah.
Well, because Arad's not. There's places where Arad's like, that looks great, and
yeah,
he's like,
Arad.
yeah, not really. It's really funny.
I love. Well, I don't know if I love it, but like I kind of love it on an entertaining level. That we have like 3 scenes with Bullseye before he even says anything.
Yeah,
his first line in this movie is "more peanuts." Like, why? Why is that his first line in this movie?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, yeah. In this version, it feels like we're doing something with that. We're building it up, where you finally get to hear him say something. Does he not say anything in the we were talking over it in the bar with the darts? He says nothing.
No, he says nothing. So he feels like he's going to be one of those monosyllabic henchmen that we talked about with X-Men, and then once he says his first line, he just won't stop talking.
That's another place though where I feel like it's kind of indulgent. We have a double introduction for him. You have to pick one. You either do the dartboard or you do the airport. You don't do both.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps.
The airport is completely pointless if it's not the way he's introduced, because I'm like, yeah, I get it. He could use regular objects as weapons. We just saw him do that. Like, the airport scene does nothing, and then...
that's not what I get from that scene.
What's that?
I don't get that from that scene. I think that's just a, like, oh man, like, he's coming, like, get ready.
But it's like, here's all these things on his person. He can use his weapons. And I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Well, he only has like one thing.
No, he's got the paperclip in his. No, the whole point of that scene is he's got all these things that he can get on a plane. That if they knew he can use them as weapons, they wouldn't let him on the plane with it. That
yeah.
And I think that's a great way to introduce Bullseye. But I think you cheapen it too much by already showing him killing a guy.
Oh yeah, and see, I feel like if you're gonna have one, it has to be the bar scene.
Well, yeah, so then cut out the airport scene.
Yeah, no, like I said, like I don't think you need that airport scene.
See, that's why I say this is not. There's a better cut to be made, because that feels like a deleted scene. It doesn't feel like a scene added back in that we needed. It feels like a deleted scene that we replaced with something else. And they actually intended both of those scenes to be in the movie, but and I don't think they should have been, but the dart scene was supposed to be later. Do you know about this?
No, I don't.
The dart scene was supposed to be an Irish pub in New York.
Oh, okay.
So we see him on the airplane. He comes to New York. He goes to that bar, and then he steals a motorcycle. Mm-hmm. And so the motorcycle that he's on later when he fights Daredevil, he got from that bar.
Weird. Okay, so what I kind of took from it is you have his introduction, and then obviously we got to show that he's like got to come to New York. So then we have the airport stuff and the airplane thing, and I just took it as the airport scene is just like our main villain is coming, like he's on his way, like it's almost like adding suspense of like this is gonna blow up soon, like get ready.
But it doesn't feel like suspense, it feels like a comedy scene.
Yeah, well, I mean that's just kind of how Bullseye plays through a lot of this. Like most of his moments are comedic.
Yeah, and he remains really funny. I'm, by the way, fine with Bullseye being kind of a blank slate. He sort of is in the comics much of the time, right? Mm-hmm. Am I remembering this right? Where like it's a while before you get any backstory for that character.
Yeah, I think Bullseye is one of those characters that actually doesn't have a alter ego. Like I think the Poindexter thing they gave to him in Netflix because it was like a name he used at one point. But if I remember correctly, I don't think he actually has a name.
Like I need it for Kingpin in a way I don't for Bullseye, and I think this movie does a good job of making him a comic relief character while simultaneously making him like the right kind of menacing. I mean, it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's one of those things where you're laughing at things that you feel like you shouldn't be laughing at. The lady on the plane with the peanuts, that never gets old.
No, it's hysterical.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think they do a good job of making him both threatening and the comic relief.
Colin Farrell also does not age.
No.
Oh my God. Like, it's crazy to go back, because I thought I would come back and look at this and be like, wow, look how young Colin Farrell is. Not really. I think being bald probably helps him look older, but like he doesn't look that much younger in this.
Do you wish in his TV show Cap that he'll like stroke his chin and be like, ha, penguin?
He pulls out an umbrella and he goes, wah, wah. So I guess we talked over the scene where they go to her apartment. Have we already done all of that?
Yes, we did. That was before the airport scene.
The
maybe right after.
Tazio. So I have an issue with that scene, which is when Foggy is in the closet and they're playing the mannequin heads for comedy. You have this like really tense music, and they don't go together at all. Where like the whole scene, it feels like it's supposed to be like police procedural and detective work. And I think that whole scene plays to TV, by the way. But we keep cutting back to him in the closet, and when you listen to that commentary, Johnson and Avi Arad are just laughing hysterically at that whole thing, and I just think it's funny that they don't address the fact that you're listening to this. Oh my God, we can get caught at any moment. Music while he's like fumbling around with heads.
That's funny.
It's weird.
The cop with the pacemaker thing, I think feels like it's something out of a sequel. I don't know if you have that.
Out of a sequel?
Like in that is like a going away from like the established, like this is what you do in Daredevil. But like we're breaking it before we're really doing much with it in general. Like it feels like something you'd come up with in a sequel.
Well, they've established it.
No, I get that, but I just mean like I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example.
I see what you're saying, but I think you have to remember that what we're watching is again a season of television truncated into a movie. So what you're looking at is not a thing you do in a sequel; it's a thing you do in the 4th or 5th episode.
There you go.
And we are into the 4th or 5th episode of this TV show right now. Mm-hmm. Am I right? This is a great shot
of the city. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good with the moon and everything. Legitimately, that's a cool shot. She is
Is it
wearing the
supposed to mean
red.
that their relationship is biohazardous?
Oh. Now
Oh,
he's thinking.
right?
Now he's out of sight of the box.
Now I'm swinging blindly.
Now we're cooking with gas. She is nicely done. She is wearing the. I'm going with that from now on. She's wearing the red.
The
dress
Electra outfit.
to again, it feels kind of CW where it's like, well, she's not going to actually be an assassin in this, so we have to homage her assassin look. And then you get to the end, and she's actually going after Daredevil, trying to kill him, and that's not what she's wearing. That's what she should be wearing in that scene.
Mm-hmm. No, they gave her like the typical black leather outfit.
Because it's more realistic, Austin. That's what Bryan Singer taught us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know how you could sneak up on people when you're wearing leather, because it would just be like.
There's this weird line here where he's trying to convince her that he'll be able to see her when it rains, and this is like first draft nonsense where there's this really weird line where he says the first time droplets hit a surface or a droplet hits a surface, and I'm like, how many times does a single droplet hit a surface? Like, it's such a weird line. It's like you should just say when the rain hits the surface.
That feels like somebody trying to write Frank Miller narration but failing.
But it's not narration; it's just dialogue.
No, I know, but like we do that a lot with Frank Miller adaptations, where you, especially with Batman stuff, where you kind of take the big famous narration stuff we all remember and put it in dialogue. Like that feels like somebody trying to write Frank Miller lines, and
I don't know that. It just sounds like words you didn't need that don't mean anything, and then you forgot to revise it.
Yeah, well, I just mean like it sounds like it's trying to be purple prosy, and it's just dumb.
Matthew Wu, $5 super chat. The show is way better, but this movie has two things the show doesn't: an outstanding soundtrack and nice visualizations of how his powers work. How do you feel about the incidental music with this movie, which scores a great deal of it? Because a lot of people, of course, probably find that dates it real hard. I was a big fan of this kind of music. I actually still go back and listen to the soundtrack quite a bit, so I'm not the right person to ask. I still like this stuff, but a lot of people think it's goofy, and I just wonder where you're at with it.
I thought it was goofy as a kid, and then I thought the funeral song was really silly, and then the Bag of Sand song was the most awesomest thing ever. And as an adult, I just think it's all silly.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
But as an adult, I just think it's all silly. But
it's all silly.
Not. So, because I know a lot of people have the like, oh man, like this soundtrack's so dated, like I hate it. I don't know, like I have like an '89 thing with it, where I just go like, yeah, it's the Prince music. It's very of its time, and it doesn't take away from anything for me. Like it's almost in one ear and out the other.
So once again, this is the exact opposite of what happens to the theatrical cut, and it was a studio mandate, I think, in the theatrical cut.
That this scene had to be earlier in the movie.
Well, no, but that they needed to sleep together.
Oh, okay.
And I think you could potentially go either way with it, but you got to rewrite the rest of the movie to match. So the problem with the theatrical version is they sleep together, and then the very next day, she she puts on the dress and wants to look beautiful for him, and is talking like they're very, very early in a relationship where they haven't moved very far yet, right? And in this version, that all tracks because they haven't moved very far yet. And I also just like that he's putting off his personal interests of what he really wants and any possibility at happiness for this kind of vow he's made to Hell's Kitchen. And the theatrical cut tries to play it like that's what he's doing, except he isn't. So when you get to the scene with Foggy, and he says, I think I should just give up on the Elektra thing before it starts. you just had sex with her last night. So like it doesn't work at all. And
So
this
it makes
version
him seem like he's a bigger jerk. He's like, ah, it's time to get. I'm done with that now.
This version at least works, and I also like that. In this version, he leaves her on the roof, and he expects that she's going to be really upset with him, and she's like super reasonable about it. Maybe a little too reasonable. But it's kind of nice that we don't have like a 5-minute argument about it or anything.
Mm-hmm. So a lot to talk about. So I think one of the best shots in this movie. No, it's okay, because you had to get through that as well. I think one of the best shots in this movie is that shot of the thug with the shadow of Daredevil over him.
Yeah, it's great.
That's really cool. Also, just I think that scene's one of the best scenes in the movie. The scene with him beating up that guy and his kid, and I like that we don't have to like, really like throw it out there to the back seats to be like, look,
yeah,
it's paralleling is like it's him as a kid. He is the Kingpin now.
Well, and apparently originally that scene was supposed to be a dad abusing his kid, and this plays a lot better.
It's a lot better
because it's the same situation that he had with his dad, where that guy is an enforcer, just like his dad was. And for the same organization, exactly. Really, and he and the kid just doesn't want his father to be hurt. Still loves his dad.
Mm-hmm. The only bad thing I will throw out that scene is I think the way we cut away to him on the roof is executed a little weird, and that shot's a little.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's one of those places where it's a great idea, but the execution's a little off.
The scene with the priest is better than the one that's in the theatrical version. That's reshot. It's different, and I've never totally understood why they did that. But in the theatrical version, the priest knows that he's Daredevil from the start, and he learns it in this version. And I much prefer this idea that Matt doesn't go to confessional and only goes to the church for the solitude. I like the distinction between the quiet and the solitude, and that he is. It seems like he's maybe the one thing he's afraid of is he actually is talking to God about what he's doing. I like that idea a lot. Great. And then by the end of the movie, he's walking by the church just as service is letting out. He's inching closer to maybe starting to get back to his faith, but he's still not actually going in. All of that is much more personal and human to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%. I also really like that moment where the priest is like, "Are you coming here for quiet?" And then you have that like the truck coming by noise, and he's like, sometimes, but sometimes not. I think that also plays really well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. Is that is he thinking about Casada in that moment? Because it's not a truck. It's actually a train.
Oh, is it a train?
It's supposed to be a train.
Oh, okay.
I think.
I thought it was a truck, but if it's a train, then yeah, that's even better.
I might be wrong about that. That's what I thought it was. The thing is, the effect is only like 70% finished.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is that this, and it's nobody's fault, but like. This is not exactly, even if all of this was left in, it's not exactly what you see in the theater because it's not all finished. It's mostly finished, but there's some stuff that's not done. I want to say that there's even and to give Johnson some credit here, I think there might even be some color correcting that's not done, but I don't know that for
possible,
sure.
Yeah.
The +1 thing always cracks me up. That's why it's +1. I just loves delivery. +1s never get anywhere by themselves. That's why it's +1.
I really like Favreau as Foggy. I think it's probably a hot take, but I think I like him as Foggy more than I like him as Happy.
No, I have that too.
And I think part of that is just I don't necessarily love what we do with Happy Hogan.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. So like.
But no, I don't want to compare him to the Foggy Nelson for the TV show because I feel like they're almost different characters.
What I was going to say is I feel like I like both of them equally. Like, it's almost like an Alfred situation where I'm like, where do I rank these characters? Like, I just kind of like both of them.
Sure. But
I probably like the TV one more because he gets more to do, but...
Once again, this scene used to not make any sense and does now, and that's nice.
Yeah.
And it's another scene that I think keeps going. No, it actually stops where it does in the theatrical cut, which is very rare. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because they. I might be wrong. I'm trying to remember here. Is this gonna end? Yeah, it's gonna end in the same place. Okay, I was remembering a different scene. Anyway,
Swish.
none of that was interesting.
We got to start over now. You ruined it.
Dang it!
We could have talked about so many important things while you hemmed and hawed.
The one of the big things that you lose by taking out the subplot is most of Urich, and you don't really track his being kind of a shark going after Matt Murdock, which he's doing through the Tazio case. And so that subplot for me is most important in what it does with the supporting characters. Never mind how I might feel about how easy that mystery is.
Yeah, definitely. No, and I like Yorick in this movie as well. I'm glad that we got more of him in this cut.
Yeah, I still question a little bit. We can talk about it at the end. How I don't know. I'm on the fence about it.
White makes his choice.
Yeah, there's not really a motivation there. He kind of, but I also kind of like the idea that he just needed to get it. He's like, I'm a newsman. This is what I do, and then he writes out and he goes, "That's good enough. I don't need to put it out there." I don't know how we would get more motivation. You know, after that, where it's like he really believes in Daredevil, needs him in the world, but I kind of want that somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. Maybe you could have had some sort of narration from him there. I don't know.
There was supposed to be.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is one of those rare cases where I actually think it would have done better with it. If he had been, kind of narrating a lot of the movie. Because they were. I don't know if it was just going to bookend the movie or if we were going to come in and out of it. But there apparently was a draft where Johnson wrote narration for that. He was even quoting it word for word what it would have been at the end in his commentary.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah.
I like to imagine if it would bookend, the movie would have opened on like flying through an eye retina while he was like blindness. Some say it's a mutation.
Toxic waste.
It causes blindness.
You don't want to get that in your eye. Why is he Inspector Gadget?
Well, 'cause that's what that guy sounds like.
Blindness.
He's just like, "Hey, yo, Matt, what are you doing? You're blind." "I'm walking."
Do you like the way the radar sense is visualized?
Yes, so that was the kind of last thing from that super chat. I also agree that I like the radar sense in this more than the TV show.
Just because it's easier to follow what's going on, or?
Yeah, exactly. And I like the blue choice over the yellow in that show. I don't know. It's, I guess, surface level, but I think it looks better in
There's
this.
something more noirish about the way they do it in the TV show, so I think that
true.
serves that material better, but...
Yeah. And I don't hate it in the TV show. I think I visually like how this looks a little bit more.
I do also like the explanation for how he's actually able to kind of literally see if the right vibrations happen and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I get the sense that wouldn't work if he didn't already have some of his life lived with sight. But, like, his brain is able to fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's actually pretty believable.
I do, I guess, like the moment in the TV show where he talks about how he sees the entire world as being on fire. It's like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Chewbacca's Lover, $2 super chat. Faith was based on Elektra according to Whedon. That doesn't surprise me at all. I had not heard that, but I buy that.
Yeah, I'd buy that for $1.
Felia, $4.99 super chat. I think we need to get over the concept of dated and art criticism. Naturally, a piece reflects when it was made. It's not a flaw, but a characteristic. I get where you're coming from, but I feel like there is a difference. So you have things that are dated in that they're not timeless. They don't hold up to scrutiny. They worked at the time or they felt like they did because something was in vogue. It was a fad. It was what was popular then. And then if you get too far away from that, you get a sense of perspective and you realize that you were just into whatever the fad was. And I think it's difficult to appreciate sometimes when when it's timeless and when it isn't until you get far enough removed from it.
Well, I think with 89, for an example, I feel like it's a legitimate criticism to complain about that, because that movie works very hard to be timeless, and then you get like the Prince soundtrack,
and then you have a sound that was,
and it like completely like drags it into a specific time period, and it doesn't work with the overall piece.
Yeah, and for some things, maybe for a lot of things, that whole idea is subjective, right? Like you might think certain kinds of music are more timeless than I do. You know what I mean? Like I think, you know, a lot of jazz works at any time, but then there's certain eras of hip hop you can get away with at certain times than others, you know? So it's somewhat up to the eye of the beholder, but I feel like with some of these things you're gonna get a bit of a consensus. Prince is kind of objectively a very 80s sound on a movie that is otherwise not interested in looking like the 80s. And this movie is much more arguably set in the time that it is. Like it visually, it's not timeless. It visually looks 2000s. So I get what you're saying there, where like if it's supposed to be set in that time and place, if you get far enough away from it and it's timeless, it works like a period piece before anything. But there are choices, directing wise, editing wise, and stuff made in this movie because of things that were in vogue then that feel sillier to us now because we got away from them, and maybe for good reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
If that makes any sense. So yeah, I don't know. There are still things that I'm not going to be able to help but call dated because I just think that's the right word for them. But I get where he's coming from.
I also, like I said, don't have an issue with the soundtrack, for an example. But even as a kid, I thought it was silly. Like, and part of it is I just really don't like that music. So, but like also when it's like, okay, we got a 2000s movie and we're gonna blast like Nickelback and Evanescence and stuff. Like I don't know, that is silly.
Yeah, and you also have to look at, as I always say, the intent of the piece. Like, what is it trying to be? Does it accomplish it? So you might want something less commercial, but what are you going to do? That's what they made. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
this is an intentionally really commercial piece that's trying to appeal to a mass audience and a lot of different people. And the question is it effective enough as that kind of entertainment? Is it, for lack of a better word, good trash? I don't think this is trash. I think it's a little better than that. But it has that component to it, right? And I think overall, yeah.
No, I think this is a movie that
pretty much
that is overall pretty good.
Oh yes, Frank Miller did just get killed, Leo. That's right.
Yeah, which is really fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like the Quesada thing. Like obviously that's not actually Quesada, but it's always fun when you bring in like comic creators and have them be killed by their own creation.
But I like that, and I also like that Frank Miller, as the kind of legend he is, where people can't talk about a lot of comic book things at all without bringing him up, is like game to be poke fun of himself like that.
Mm-hmm. And it's also always fun when we get comic creator cameos that aren't Stan Lee as well, like Claremont and things. And
that's the big one you would want with this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I meant to say this earlier, but when the with the mob boss that ends up having Jack Murdock killed for not throwing the fight, when he goes through a list of several fighters that are all named after comic creators, one of them is Bendis, and in the subtitles on the DVD, it's misspelled, and somebody wrote Bendez. They wrote Bendez. Jason lost it.
That's amazing. So there's one of the first big, like, oh, that looks rough.
Yeah.
Shots.
No, they look like people made of Jell-O.
They look like the tie-in video game that was canceled.
That's it. This looks alright.
Yeah, no, this stuff I think looks fine. It's that shot, and then there's going to be a lot of it in their big fight at the end.
So yeah, this POV thing drives me absolutely insane. And I've complained about this a million times, but we're talking about this movie again, so I gotta bring it up. But, like, what is she looking at through that whole fight?
And I have a very easy fix for you, Cap.
Okay, go ahead.
She's still stuck in the car. Like, just do that. Like, she hasn't gotten out. They were just in a car crash.
Oh, when you say fix, you mean you can make it work, but it doesn't right now.
You can make it work, yeah. Like, she gets out of the car and, like, sees her dad, and Bullseye's already gone. And just sees Daredevil. Like, that's how you fix that scene, right?
Yeah, that's great. But they just have her, like, already out, sees... Because she doesn't have to be right next to her father when he gets impaled.
Instead of that shot where she's, like, up and, like, seeing it, like, fly by, just have a shot of her in the car, and you can see him, and you, like, see it fly into his body from the car door.
Perfect. Yeah. Does she
that's
even need... Do you even need the shot where she sees him run across the roof?
I mean, you can still have that. That's like, you can go either way. Like
it's like they established that because they're afraid that if they don't do that, we won't buy it. But like, if she never saw Bullseye, but she saw him after that, it still works. I'm sorry, what?
Well, and then she just gets out of the car, and obviously, like, she just sees Daredevil there. Also, when they're driving, like, I'm pretty sure she's looking forward out of the car, which is where Bullseye flies in from. So, like, I feel like she would have seen him throw the stars into the limo.
That's what I'm saying is I just don't buy her lying on the street. She doesn't at least get that there's a fight between two different people back there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it could be either of them. And also, I think it's a little bit hokey that the Billy Club goes through his chest. It's a little hokey.
That is comic booky enough that I like that.
Okay, that's cool. Well, that's the thing is, there's a fine line, and I think this whole thing is going to be subjective, so
exactly.
I'm not going to be super critical of some of that, because it kind of just depends on who you are, what you can deal with. Like, for instance, there's a thing that bugs me a little bit that probably doesn't a lot of other people, which is just, I mean, I love how like, over-the-top evil Bullseye is, but I think it goes a little too far, having him not liking the smell of roses because he's evil.
No, I think that's awesome.
It's hilarious, but I'm like, really? He can't, he's like, oh god, roses. Like, he's a Power Rangers villain at that point.
No, I love that he smells it and he's like, that's wonderful.
And I'm sure that's not scripted. I'm sure that's a choice he made.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, like I said to you the other day off camera, Cap, the Billy Club thing works because Bullseye never misses, and he wasn't aiming for that guy. He was aiming specifically for his heart. So
there you go.
He doesn't miss, so like it had to go through him in order to hit.
Yeah, like, I can go case by case and be like, this thing's too over the top, this thing isn't, and I can't begin to be consistent about it. It's just about what I'm buying in the moment. And
yeah, I also think this movie is over the top enough that that doesn't bother me. If it was trying to be more realistic, then maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to put my finger on. I feel like the overall world is not quite as heightened as I want it to be for how Saturday morning the villains get in places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, I also kind of like that it is more of like a real world. To an extent, there's definitely things with Matt Murdock and stuff that's over the top and silly, but I like that the villains kind of bring that element to the world as well.
Okay. I have never heard an explanation from anybody that worked on this movie about why Bullseye wants an effing costume, but he never gets one. Why would you put the line in the movie if if he's not wearing something else at the end?
Okay, here's the real reason. So after that scene, they take him to a tailor. He gets measured, and then they're just making it. But then he gets beat before it comes in. Like, it's just sitting in a warehouse.
Coolio brings up Turk here, which is interesting.
Yes. Yep.
We don't see him.
Turk's
but
a big part of Frank Miller's run. And I'm sure he is, like, outside of that too. But it makes sense that they would go to that. It's almost weird that they didn't just make this guy Turk.
So Bullseye, I have an alternate theory. I think what happens is Bullseye goes on a reality series starring Stan Lee called Who Wants to Be a Supervillain? And he gets booted off the show before he gets to the round where everybody that gets to stay gets a better costume than the homemade one they brought with them. Because that happens in Who Wants to Be a Superhero. I think that's what happens.
I think he got on that show and Stanley was like, "What's your name, kid?" And he was like, "Bullseye."
Bullseye.
And then he was immediately voted off.
He didn't get to do any challenges.
No.
How do you feel about the scene that makes it seem like Foggy is kind of incompetent without Matt there?
I think it's fine. The TV show does that as well.
Okay.
It's built up more there.
Like, is he a good lawyer?
I mean, ultimately he is, because he wins the case.
He wins the case, yeah.
Yeah, which is also what the show does. So that must be a comic somewhere that I just haven't read.
Yeah. One of the really over-the-top, hilarious villain things that Fisk does is just, like, laughing when Elektra rides away in the car.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny. I'm bad and this is funny because they're not happy.
I like what you've done with your hair.
That's great. I mean,
it's funny.
It's probably because her father died and he caused it, but it watches like, you can't even get your blind boyfriend with you. This is one of the most convenient bouts of weather in a movie.
Oh yeah. No, if the song didn't make the scene silly, it's the fact that it immediately starts raining when she walks away.
Yeah, and that's a thing I'm immune to because I personally love Evanescence, and this movie got me into that band, and this is a great song, and I don't mind in the scene. But
I don't hate this song. I just think it's funny, like how cartoonishly sad it is in the scene. That's always what's
in the scene. Yeah,
that's like nothing against the song. Like it's always just been, I love how cartoonish and sad it is. Like it's that like element too far that it becomes kind of parody to me.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I'm gonna agree with you and go this far. If you took the vocals out and it was just the piano melody, it's
100%.
It's just as bad. It's because it's sappy piano music in the scene. It doesn't listen sappy if you're just listening to it in your car. You know, it's really sad, but. Chewbacca's Lover, $2 Super Chat, Ed Norton and Colin Farrell were almost Daredevil.
Weird.
He's giving us a lot of trivia.
You should make some sort of Trivial Pursuit game.
I think that happens a lot with things like this, where somebody tries out for one role and they end up getting...
Oh, yeah. I mean, that happened with Loki, where Hiddleston tried out for Thor.
So again, this scene has a natural place to cut, and then now it keeps going, and it's about the Tazio case again.
Hey, Matt, what are you doing? I gotta tell you about your case.
Somebody left the cake out in the rain! I was gonna eat that cake, but now it's all wet, and I don't think I want any.
It was a hero cake.
Yeah, I really missed the... I mean, I never heard it, but I feel like I missed the voiceovers. Like, I kind of want that.
Yeah, no, that would have been cool. And we do a little bit with that with Matt Murdock, but it would have made it feel a little bit more Millery if we had it running throughout.
And I think part of the reason that I'm saying that is because I've seen that done really effectively in Daredevil comics. I can't remember what it's called, but there's the miniseries that Frank Miller came back and did in like the 2010s, wasn't it? Or was it was it a Bendis series?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, Bendis came back and did, I can't remember the name of it, it's been too long, but he did a mini series. I think it was like 6 or 7 issues that was all from Urich's perspective.
Oh, okay.
And the whole time I read that, I kept thinking, this is a movie.
Yeah. Well, didn't Bendis start in journalism? Like that'd probably be a pretty cool miniseries.
If that's true, I didn't know that.
Maybe not. I don't know. I feel like that's a common background for some comic
I would
writers.
be really curious to hear what you'd think of his Sam and Twitch, because that's where he gets his start.
Oh yeah,
And I love that stuff. I know you're not a Spawn guy, but it reads fine without that.
yeah. No, I'm sure it does.
Spawn's just in the background, but
Mhm.
it's just it's noir detective fiction.
Yeah.
Hard
But I
hard
don't like dislike Spawn. Like I would read that.
hard boiled stuff. So I'm gonna make the case that if the subplot was left in, and because this is another character that's a big part of this that doesn't get anything to do in the theatrical version, but if this scene had been left in, I think it would probably be kind of a favorite scene, like that you get blind Matt Murdock, driving a car around and pretending to parallel park. Like, it's really funny.
Yeah, no, it is funny. I'm not entirely sure why he comes here as Mad and not Daredevil, but the scene is funny.
Yeah, Johnson talks about it like, and I didn't get this enough from it, but that after everything with Elektra and her father and stuff, he's just really kind of far gone. He's lost himself. He's not trying to keep secrets like he was, and I don't feel like that continues. So
Weird, yeah. I wouldn't have gotten that at all. That sounds like an idea that they had while making it, and then it just didn't really come through.
either that or it's an explanation after the fact.
Yeah, or that. It's me BSing an answer for something.
Leo, Matt Murdock driving a car is the most epic thing ever. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a thing people would have kind of latched onto.
Mm-hmm. No, in terms of just being like fun and entertaining, it's one of his best scenes.
Yeah, I mean, let's have that conversation, because obviously people kind of hated him as his
don't
character.
get
I've
it.
never understood that.
Yeah. No, and I know people that are like, oh, like the director's cut's a better movie, but Ben Affleck's still like god awful in it, and I think he's fine.
Was it in vogue to just hate him in things? Because I think it was.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah. I think
Well, I
it was
mean,
definitely
you remember
went on.
the Weird Al lyric in Suya?
Yeah.
I'd sue Ben Affleck. Do I even need a reason?
Yeah.
He got that from culture, right?
Yeah.
It's the Katie Holmes thing. People hated her. I don't know why.
I mean, Katie Holmes isn't a good actress, but Ben Affleck's fine.
Yeah, but why do they hate her? I've just never understood that. And I kind of had that with Ben Affleck. And do you think people have maybe turned around on it since his Batman? Because even people that really dislike BVS, a lot of folks said the one thing that kind of worked was the casting for Batman, which is so ironic after this movie.
It's not his Batman. It's when he came back as like a director. Like it's stuff like The Town and Argo, I think. Because we were hearing that before he was cast as Batman. Like, oh man, like Ben Affleck's a good actor now.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
when he was cast as Batman, people were still like, I mean, he's good.
I
But
get
don't
that,
know
but
if
you're
I
not
see him as
answering the question I
Batman.
asked, which is, are people retroactively going back and being more okay with him as Daredevil now?
Well, that's what I was getting to.
Oh,
but,
okay, because I don't think his directing stuff made anybody go, he's good in Daredevil. I never heard that.
No, I'm just saying like that's the moment when people start realizing like, oh, Ben Affleck doesn't suck.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. No, I don't think there's been any reflecting on this movie as Ben Affleck was actually good in it.
I like Kevin Smith in this scene.
He is pretty fun, and
I'll say it. I think he does a good job.
Yeah, and I did wonder if this maybe would feel too cutesy, but it doesn't. I don't know. I think he's good in this scene.
No, and the way this scene continues on into the Tazio case stuff is really funny. Because there's a clear break point, and then they stand there like they're waiting for the scene to end, and then they get startled by a phone. It's great.
That's funny.
This is one of those things that I'm on the fence about, where I'm like, is it too silly? Like, as a toy I want, and how the heck did they not make these, by the way?
That his Billy Club becomes his can?
It's really stupid. Like, is it too stupid for this material? I don't know, but Matt Murdock, what's going to happen if somebody finds that and then they realize that it's like they did, and they realize it's a Billy Club? They're going to go, or they realize that it's a blind man's cane. They're going to be looking around for either a blind person or someone pretending to be.
Yeah, I don't know. That feels like something Stan Lee would do. Like it feels like
That's
it's
what I'm
coming out
saying.
of,
Is I think it works in Silver Age comics in a way it maybe doesn't in modern movies. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
it's a well, and at the very least, why would you make it the same color as your costume?
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's a very specific shade of red that I still say is purple to my eyes, but no one
It's
agrees
not.
with me.
What? Purple?
Yeah, I still have it. It still looks purple to me in a lot of
Weird.
lighting.
It's very dark red. It's like maybe I
Yeah.
can kind of see it from that.
And then the thing with the sand, like I'm sorry, guy who doesn't like it when people say dated. It's dated. Like,
This I think is really fun though. Like it's just silly, and I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe dated's not the right word, but it's not a thing I feel like you'd ever see after this, and it's just so
No.
impractical. Like, who is cleaning this up? It's like she knows she's in a movie that has a crew that will clean this up when she's done.
Well, and it's also that we're mixing it with the
I guess she's rich and has
Schumacher
servants,
Batman
but-
suit up too.
Yeah, which again needs to be read.
Also, I don't buy that her size are sharp.
Yeah, they look like practice size.
Yeah.
Andrew 49 super chat. Thanks, man. Daredevil is a top 12 superhero movie.
I wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't either.
In the 2000s, maybe.
Now, we did X2 earlier today, and I might put that there, but not Daredevil.
I don't know if I can definitively say that because I don't think it is for me at this point. But
that's totally fair. I didn't think it would be until we came into this tonight, and
but I also feel like I could make a list and it would be in it. I just offhand I'm like I don't know.
I went Legend with X2, and I'll tell you right now, Daredevil's not going to go all the way to Legend.
Oh, it definitely is for me.
Is it?
No.
No. So again, this works in a way it didn't in the theatrical cut, partly because we don't get there too fast with Elektra's father getting killed, and then very quickly she's going after Daredevil. Like the movie needs to breathe more in between that stuff, otherwise
I feel like the theatrical
feels like
cut
a really
it's
standard
like
revenge plot.
I feel like in the theatrical cut it's like funeral, cutting up bags of sand. Oh my god, his stick is Matt Murdock's stick. This rooftop scene, like that's how I remember it being. Is just like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
there's like nothing in between any of this.
Yeah, it's a trailer.
Yeah. Oh,
it feels like it's just representing.
Line delivery.
It feels like it's representing comics before it's actually adapting them in the
Also,
theatrical version.
Elektra's size when she comes to fight him also look like they're diamond studded, but like the diamonds you would see on like a Halloween costume.
They're sequins before they're diamonds.
Yeah, that's the big moment that made me laugh really loud last night. Is because one of the Wonder Woman line deliveries I always think of is in the Snyder cut when she's fighting Steppenwolf and she goes, "Liar." And then in this movie, you have Elektra going, "Liar."
Yeah, but I think that works okay for this. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe you don't need to whisper.
It's really bad.
Robert Wild, playing devil's advocate for the costumes, pun intended. Maybe they didn't want both Daredevil and Elektra wearing red leathers so they wouldn't look so similar. Here's the thing, though. Her suit shouldn't be leather, and then you're fine. It should be a material that looks similar to what the dress was, but not the dress. And then
it's the 2000s. She has to be wearing leather if she's gonna fight.
No, I know. Well, and you can't say that it's padding because look how much she's not wearing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there's still plenty of skin to stab through with that outfit. She's not hiding anything. She's got a midriff for God's sake with the leather.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now let me ask you this question, and this is not full on criticism yet because I actually don't know where I land on it. When she takes the mask off and immediately realizes that it's Matt Murdock, should she know for sure she's made a mistake, especially in this version when they haven't even slept together yet? Or should there be a part of her that says, just because he's blind doesn't necessarily mean that he didn't, like, double-cross me and killed my father for some reason? Should there not be some kind of hesitation where for a second she's like, maybe it still is this guy? I mean, what do you think? I don't think she knows him well enough. Say again.
She should be at least conflicted.
I think that's where I'm landing on it as I'm talking about it.
Do you wish that Matt Murdock said, "I'm blind. That means that I didn't kill your father"?
Yeah, that'd be great. Because that's, I mean, I don't think for her, even though, well, I was gonna say now she knows he's Daredevil and they've fought, so she really should know that he would be capable of that if he really wanted to. But even before when they fought on the playground, I mean, like, she ought to be putting two and two together maybe in the wrong way and be like, well, I mean, he's capable of it.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't know what his motivations were, but she doesn't know anything about him.
Yeah, exactly. I also have a question for you, which is Daredevil injured enough that he shouldn't be able to get up in this scene? He got stabbed through the shoulder. That's not that bad.
I don't know. I mean, we could test that theory and do it to you and see how you are through the rest of the commentary.
Dude, I get stabbed in the shoulder like at least daily. But Elektra's about to get stabbed in the chest, and she's able to crawl farther than Daredevil is.
God, he seems kind of pathetic now when you put it like that.
Yeah, you know what? It just like kind of came to me right now is it reminds me of that really stupid moment in Amazing Spider-Man where he gets shot in the leg and he's like, "Ah, my leg! I can't web swing now." And it's like, but you're not using your leg. The person who made this is an idiot. And it reminds me of that, like, can you not stand up? Like, you got stabbed in the arm. Like,
So-
surely it hurts, but, like, you can get up.
So even in this cut, I'm gonna get back to this movie if that's cool. Even
Well, I am
in
talking about this movie.
what's that?
I said I am talking about this
Well, I
movie.
thought you were still
Yeah.
talking about Spider-Man.
No, I'm talking about this. Like, you can get up. You got stabbed right here.
Yeah,
You can stand up.
no, you're right. In this movie, even in this cut, we're not really earning adapting this famous scene, right?
Yeah. No, I think both adaptations of Daredevil have that issue because I don't think it works in the show at all either.
At least, and I haven't watched that in a long time, and I know people really hate that Elektra. I didn't. I had a hard time developing an opinion about her. Like,
Yeah.
Like I wasn't super impressed with it, but it was whatever.
Yeah.
In this, like, it's kind of weird to do this, and she's not even an assassin.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And no, the issue I have with both this and the show doing it is it feels rushed. Like, it feels like we just have to do it because it's the comic book moment.
Because it's the big famous comic book moment, yeah.
And it's not
we have
really
to introduce
earned
her and
either way.
kill her, and she hasn't even had the career she does in the comics. It hasn't had to just be like the comics, but they want this to be.
Mm-hmm.
So why is she a completely different character so far? I mean, she seems to have the skills to be an assassin, but that's not what she does, and it irritates me. I'm talking too much about this, but it irritates me in the commentary that that Johnson and Arad did, where once she goes after Daredevil, they start calling her Assassin Elektra. I'm like, that's not what an assassin is. She's a vigilante.
Mm-hmm.
She's not paid to kill someone. That's what an assassin is.
No, it almost feels like this big iconic moment is her origin story.
And that's how they play it with her movie.
Yeah. Well, and I think even with the ending where they set her up to go off and do her own thing, like I think it plays like that at the end of this. Like, that's probably where we would have gone in a sequel.
Yeah, absolutely. It might have worked a little better had Stick been a supporting character.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you would have established the person that brought her back and trained her.
Yeah, so I just had this thought
Yeah.
going to that park thing. What if Stick owned that gym, and that's like they connect through knowing him?
Yeah. No, that's great. It's called Sticks.
Yeah.
STYX. Chewbacca's lover. $5 super chat. See, because it's Daredevil and it's like the River Sharon. Kevin Smith and Patton Oswalt have to cameo in every geek thing because they're celebrities who happen to be comic book fans. Kevin Smith can act though.
I was actually gonna say earlier that
It was appropriate in this case though because he actually worked on the character.
Exactly. I was actually going to make the joke in that scene, and then we kind of got past it. So
Sorry.
I was like, I'm not. No, no. I was like, I'm not going to go back to it now. But I was going to make the joke that if that wasn't Kevin Smith, it would be Patton Oswalt.
Maybe not back then, but now.
When's Blade Trinity? Like, I feel like we're getting to that point. No,
Is he in that?
he's in Blade Trinity. Yeah,
But
That's the
we
first one I
weren't
ever
to the
saw.
point where he's in every geek thing, because I didn't even know who Patton Oswalt was until Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
yeah, that's fair.
And I mean, I get that he's in plenty of stuff before that. I just missed a lot of it, but he wasn't in a lot of superhero stuff, or I would have known about it. So
Yeah,
I guess
definitely.
there's the one. What else? Like,
Yeah, no, it is definitely a later thing.
so again, this plays totally different. This is the same scene, but it plays totally different in the theatrical version because he's confessed to this priest, and now the priest is finding out in this moment that he's Daredevil, and it plays better.
Yeah, I agree. We're also gonna get to my big thing with Bullseye in both this and the TV show,
Yeah.
which is that Bullseye has an inherently funny power. Not that it's a power, but a gimmick. Like I laughed so hard when he frisbeed the serving tray or whatever, like the donation tray into Daredevil's throat. Like,
Is that
every
funny?
I think it is.
Okay.
I think Bullseye's gimmick is super funny.
Because
Like,
I think kind of funnier than that is just enjoying your work too much, so you're spinning around for no reason.
no, that's also.
And then you get pelted in the head. That's not in the theatrical version, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad we got to see it because it's hilarious.
Yeah, that part's great.
This is also a place where some of the worst full body CG happens.
Yeah. No, rewatching it last night, I was like, oh, this reminds me a lot of the Black Panther climax in the CGI. Like, it just becomes a cartoon.
And I hate the bats thing. I've always complained about it.
It's
But
silly.
it's
yeah.
not a Batman movie. Like you don't want to draw those kinds of direct, obvious comparisons, particularly when you set your part of your third act in a church.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels like you're ripping off '89 all over the place right here. Stop it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Look, CG pipes from a pipe organ.
Also, what is this pipe organ?
It's huge.
I know.
Well, I mean, there are very, very large pipe organs that, because you know why pipe organs are that big, right?
I don't know. It's just like the acoustics of it.
Well, yeah, it's to get all the octaves.
Oh, okay.
Like the different sizes of pipes. My stepdad is a professional pipe organist, and I've actually been to organ factories and stuff. By the way, it's a neat thing to see put together, and the different sizes get you different
ranges,
octaves. Yeah.
But here it looks like a pipe organ that King Kong could climb.
Well, and you have to have different sizes for different octaves, but I think that is some of those are preposterously large.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So we went from the Black Panther climax to the fire scene from Spider-Man, right? And like you said, like
yes,
it's
yeah,
probably
I
not
think I've said that
intentional,
before, but I wasn't thinking about that this time. Yeah.
But it is that scene.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. That's true. This is another place. I have some coverage issues or some like camera placement issues with this movie.
Okay.
So one example is here where Bullseye, and I had this in the theater even. Bullseye gets all the glass. That's wonderfully comic book. That whole thing.
Well, just his like flip up when he kicks the mirror is so comic booky.
I love it. Yeah, and then when he's pulling those out of the air and they're clearly like cut and not broken, it's great. And then
no, they're all puzzle pieces.
he does this, right?
Yeah.
So what you're expecting, the natural thing to see after that is it's a time cut problem. The natural thing to see after that is a bunch of them all come at Daredevil at once. But that's not what you see. The next thing you see is they're all coming at different times at him, and it takes too long before they cut back and you see that he's doing this. So it's very confusing in the moment where you're like, why are they coming all in a straight line like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's not my style because I don't like the smell of roses because they're too wholesome. I can't have it.
Also don't like puppies.
So, I, this is where we get into a place that you want the movie to make a lot more sense because of what's added back in, but it still is missing stuff that they just never wrote. So first of all, it's just too. It's dumb that he's got the villain speech where he tells Matt Murdock that he is that it's the Kingpin is Wilson Fisk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're getting to the end of the movie and we can't think of a way for Daredevil to get the information that Foggy found out, even though you could just time it so that maybe it would seem convenient. You could just time it where during this or after it, that information from the cop has already gotten out. Just put those scenes a little bit earlier, and then Daredevil gets that the same way he does when he's at Fisk's place, right? Instead, it's Wilson Fisk is the Kingpin. Okay, I'm gonna go fight the Kingpin, and like that's an explanation. It's just easy and sloppy. But there is no explanation for what I'm about to mention, Austin, which is sorry, I'm taking too long to make this point. But when Daredevil gets when Daredevil is on his way to Fisk, Fisk knows he's coming, and he says it's what I would do. But you don't even know that he knows that you're the Kingpin. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know that.
There are no answers this way.
And furthermore, you think your secret is safe from everyone else. So the script has selectively decided that he somehow knows that Daredevil knows that, but nobody else.
Yeah.
What? Huh?
I think the way I would change this is I would.
I don't understand either.
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, good.
No, it's okay.
I was talking to Kingpin. I'm sorry.
Kingpin would not be outed, and instead Daredevil would find that out from Bullseye. I buy that Bullseye is cocky enough that he would say that. It's easy, sure, but whatever. It's fine. I can live with it.
I'd buy it on his deathbed or something, or like if he thought he was dying.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But so Daredevil goes, okay, I'm going to go beat up Kingpin now. And he goes straight there. Kingpin doesn't know he's coming. He's sitting in his desk, being the Kingpin, doing his thing. Daredevil beats his way up to Kingpin. And he's like, well, I know who you are. Like, I'm going to take you down now. And Kingpin's like, good luck proving that. And then kicks Daredevil's ass. And then we kind of set that up for the sequel of, okay, now he's going to have to combine Daredevil and Matt Murdock into this quest to take out Kingpin and kind of prove what he's doing, but make Bullseye the main villain of this movie.
Well, and you said off camera to me earlier that you kind of imagined this movie having a smarter sequel, like an X1 to X2. Obviously, the difference is X-Men 1 and Daredevil had the opposite problem, which is X-Men doesn't get enough done, and Daredevil throws in everything but the kitchen sink. So I kind of have a difficult time even imagining what the sequel to this is, because they threw so much in this movie. Not to say that there's not plenty of other Daredevil material.
Well, my main worry, if they were to have done a sequel, is that it would be Bullseye and Kingpin again. Just going off of this movie, not at my proposed idea of Kingpin is your main villain of 2.
Sure, yeah, if you have to write from what they did in this. No, I like that idea a lot. That's great. But you also wouldn't have done this movie the way you did it because you come into this assuming there won't be a sequel. Mm-hmm. There's not really sequel bait. I mean, you kept the villains alive, but there's nothing. This movie has no confidence that you will ever see anymore.
Yeah, the most is just, I will get out eventually. Yeah, I know. And I'll kick your ass
and Elektra is alive, but all of that feels like bones you're throwing to fans. It doesn't feel like you're actually setting up a thing you think realistically you'll make.
Mm-hmm. And this movie could have had a sequel. Like, it was successful enough to have one.
And they should have made that instead of Elektra.
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard 2 things. Like, I've heard either way that the sequel would have been Guardian Devil or Oh my God, what's
Born Again?
Born Again? Thank you.
Guardian Born Again? Devil?
Guardian Born Again, yeah.
I would have been really concerned about a sequel to this being the same movie again.
Kind of like a Daredevil season 3 thing where that's not entirely like there's different stuff in that, but some by the end it does kind of have that a little bit.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that in a while, so I don't remember a lot with that. But
Well, it's just because it also
I guess the
has to end
climax with Kingpin and all that, maybe. But
yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. Is it kind of just also has to end with him beating the Kingpin, and it's a little like, yeah, well, that's what we did last time. Like, couldn't we come up with a different ending?
yeah, well, what I would worry about is, like you said, you've got the same villains. We know they're still alive, so they both want revenge on Daredevil. The only real difference now is everybody knows that Kingpin is Wilson Fisk, so he's just operating from the shadows now or something. I do think, by the way, that a lot of this is probably more effective if Kingpin is in the background longer, kind of like we do in the TV show.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wish he was just in the background in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
He would work so well as like an emperor villain where like Daredevil won the day, but at the end, like there is still greater crime in New York that he has to work to fight against.
But like in keeping Elektra, or in saying Elektra is back from the dead or alive or whatever at the end of this, like you just have the exact same cast again.
Yeah, yeah, and I would want her to not be there. Like I would rather Karen be the main love interest of the next movie.
Yeah, and even though Karen in this version finally gets one thing she does that's important to the story, she's still underutilized is an understatement, obviously.
Exactly, and it's a shame
an audience that's
that
not
actress.
familiar with this material would never know that she matters in the comics.
No, exactly.
Much less that she's his main love interest.
Yeah, you wouldn't even necessarily know that she's like a love interest of Matt Murdock or even a comic book character. Like you could easily look at that and be like, well, they gave her a receptionist.
You know what it would be like? It would be like if you did a Spider-Man movie where his main love interest was Black Cat and Mary Jane walked him to school in 2 scenes.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, you kind of have that with Homecoming, I guess. Except we all obviously set up MJ to be the main love interest by the end of that.
Yeah, and there's like a tongue-in-cheek sort of thing they're doing with it. But, I mean, it's like if it was your first Spider-Man movie and regular moviegoers didn't know that Mary Jane mattered.
Yeah.
Be like if she was just around.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they were just in science class together,
Mm-hmm. I guess to an extent they kind of have that with Gwen in the Raimi movies.
So do you feel like this has... In the Raimi movies, yeah, in the third one, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's at least got the nod to the one thing everybody knows about her, right? We got to make it look like she's gonna fall from a high place and die for a second. But do you think this has that problem that I complain about with a lot of things, where conveniently the one person that the hero finally decides to save is his arch nemesis at the end?
No,
Because I think it actually kind of works okay.
And I also
on that level,
I've heard people complain about it with Bullseye, but I also don't think he's trying to kill Bullseye. Like I think it's comic booky enough that he knows that he's going to survive that fall.
I don't know, but they easily could have killed him. You wouldn't have been surprised if he was dead at the end. You're kind of surprised when he comes back, so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's maybe ambiguous in the same way that Quesada was, where it's like.
Well, and this is also a world where he and Bullseye are like jumping like 50 feet to other buildings.
Yeah, it's true. No, that's good. Yeah.
And I also think it helps that when he lands, he's clearly still alive. Like if it was maybe a little bit more ambiguous,
he's clearly still alive in this version, but not in the theatrical cut.
Oh, really?
But yeah, because you don't get the ice fluttering. They took that out because it was too creepy or something.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that lets you know that he's still alive. If you don't have that shot, he looks dead.
Oh, okay, well that's just another reason why the theatrical cut is broken.
Yep, that's it. Bob the Hun, $2 super chat. Joe Quesada is the reason Bullseye doesn't have a costume. Does he mean Quesada wouldn't let that happen in this movie?
I guess so. Yeah.
I had never heard that.
And that's why the director was like, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna kill you, Quesada. You should have a costume."
Goddamn Batman says Johnson said Born Again was gonna be the sequel.
Yeah, I've heard people say both ways. Like I've heard people say, because Ben Affleck has like an introduction to, I think, Guardian Devil, where he talks about how that's going to be the sequel to the movie.
We haven't talked at all about Coolio, but he's legitimately really funny in this.
Mm-hmm. So I love that scene where Foggy's doing the it's not cross-examination, whatever it is on the defense side. His statement, I guess.
Yep.
The courtroom, like, oh, that's really fun.
Yeah, the bit where he goes, where he's talking about the rifle instead of the handgun, and he's like, it's got butt-shot. It goes there, and Coolio apparently, Coolio came up with that apparently on the day.
Oh, really? That's
yeah.
And I just love Favreau's reaction when he's like, okay, yeah, look, we're done. None of this, no. I'm done, Your Honor. Do you think they put out a casting call for a woman that looks like Jennifer Gardner? But
no, that's her stunt double.
Oh, that's her stunt double?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that makes sense then.
That's kind of cool.
That is cool. That's having fun with the filmmaking process, as it were.
Yeah, and that was her stunt double on Alias, so they kind of went everywhere together with stuff. Yeah.
Every time I see that, I'm like, oh, they made a Jessica Jones show? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because it predates that, I think.
Mm-hmm. But like, I have that every time I see it. I'm like, oh, it's Jessica Jones. Wait, no.
So I'm never on about, generally like racial diversity just for the sake of it, but in a thing like this where you're in urban environment like this, and you're in a dark, violent version of Hell's Kitchen, it is kind of weird, especially in the theatrical cut. I never make this point, but I had this even in the theater. It's weird how white it is. That like you've got one black guy in the whole movie, and he's the bad guy. So Coolio helps that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fair. I hadn't really had that thought, but I mean, you're not wrong.
It is kind of nice to have a cool black guy in this that didn't do anything wrong.
That's why this movie we need the Turk cut of this movie where we add Turk.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that you have to have the the token good black guy or whatever, but like, I don't know, it's just sort of weird that you're in Hell's Kitchen, New York, and you don't have that guy.
Well, it's also just like
you cut it out.
Giant shame that no one's ever adapted that Frank Miller panel where Turk's driving a taxi and Daredevil kicks him through the windshield. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't.
It's the greatest panel of all time. It's wonderful. That's really early in his run.
See, why is Matt narrating? It really should be the journalist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would work. So Wilson Fisk is going to get his own sequel in The Green Mile, which we're setting up here.
Which is really funny, because isn't Michael Clark Duncan in that?
Yeah, he's the guy in prison.
I've seen that. I always conflate it with the other one. The other,
Shawshank Redemption?
Shawshank, yeah, exactly. I always forget which one is which. Because I've had them both requested.
Oh, okay.
For review. I've reviewed them both. In somewhat close proximity, but they're both really great movies. Whichever one is which. So, of course, this was in the mid-credits in the theatrical version.
Oh, weird. I don't remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you stay long enough, you know that Bullseye's not dead in that version. You don't know about Kingpin, though.
It's always just
Kingpin's not dead because he got carted off. It wasn't until this last time I watched it that I realized that's Wesley in the cell next to him. Did you notice that?
Yeah. No,
I somehow never caught that.
I was like, that's funny. It's a little strange.
Bob the Hun, Mark Steven Johnson wanted to do the costume, but Quesada fought him on it and convinced him not to do it. Well, then you take that line out.
But it's such a good line, Cap.
Is it good enough to not pay it off in any way? Because that's very distracting to me. I want a costume. And then Bullseye, you go back and you reshoot, and Kingpin just says, no.
How about no, you crazy Irish B-word? Yeah.
Steal your own costume. Well, the thing is, for the style of this movie, he's already wearing one. That's the thing, is like, what he has looks like a supervillain costume to me.
Mm-hmm.
As much as anything else in this. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the closest thing to another costume in it.
Riddle me this, okay? Elektra fights Bullseye and she wins, and then magically decides to be an assassin and goes to work for the Kingpin. She could say, I want an effing costume. And she's wearing one, but based on that, we could say she doesn't have a costume.
Yeah. She'd be like, I want a costume, and he'd be like, definitely no.
I've always found it really distracting that he presses one button and then we cut to the monitor and we just see everything start to delete like he's holding it down. Like, just shoot it where he's holding it down. It's so awkward. Because I'm just imagining him. You see him just press it down once, so I'm just imagining, even though we don't hear the sound effect, he's just.
In my proposed ending, you could also still end with "Go get him, Matt." That's also just the ending of that version.
Go get him, Tiger.
Yeah, it is the "Go get him, Tiger" ending. I had that thought too.
I never had that thought until just now. Oh, that was a lot of fun. God, that watched fast.
Eric leaves his wedding to tell Matt to go get him.
That watched damn fast, yeah?
It did watch fast.
That movie, Keith David. David
I do
Keith.
agree that movie's too long, but I also think it moves pretty quick, if that makes sense.
There's just certain scenes that drag on too long for me. But in defense of this cut, I don't know if I would have that as much if I hadn't seen the theatrical version. It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I would with certain scenes.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Fella, this is definitely a high hero for me on this rewatch. Not sure if I could go superhero. I don't really do rating, though, generally. Well, thanks for doing it this time.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see where we're at here in a little bit, but we'll go to...
Have I told you my Daredevil sequel story on camera? I think I have before.
I forget. Go ahead. And then even through the credits, I'll go ahead and start reading the tweet length reviews. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. When I was a kid, I don't know, maybe like 10, I had a friend in school that was like, oh man, I have Daredevil 2 on DVD. It's such a good movie. And I was like, oh, I love Daredevil.
Oh, you have told me that.
I want to watch Daredevil 2. Can I come over and watch it? And he was like, yeah, definitely. And then every time I was at his house, he'd be like, nah, I don't want to watch Daredevil 2. Let's do something else. And then he was like telling me about what the plot was, and the main villain was Sauron, like the X-Men villain from Savage Lands.
They had the rights to him.
Yeah.
It was Fox.
So for years, I just thought this movie existed where he fought a giant pterodactyl man.
He got that right.
And I want that sequel, god damn it.
So we're just listening to the soundtrack from this movie now, the rock soundtrack, which I still listen to, somewhat frequently. That it's weird that the song that closes out the movie is the first song that you hear in the soundtrack.
I'm wondering why we're ending on like Matchbox 20 and not.
It's not Matchbox 20.
And not the Man Without Fear song. You'd think you would end on that.
I think there's probably contracts where they have to get certain songs in the credits or something. I don't know, because they already played that in the movie.
Yeah. The placement of that song is just really weird in general, because they play over Bullseye beating him. Yeah,
it's weird. It's like Daredevil, and then you're gonna watch
think that would be your big credit song.
Now your girlfriend's gonna come and get you. No, I'm with you. It is kind of weird we didn't do that. But the I've come to bring you hell song. My wife always sang it. I've come to bring your mail, and it's really funny. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read some tweet-linked reviews from our patrons. If you would like to be able to leave these, patreon.com/geekvolution, the $10 tier makes you a superhero rewiring producer. You get several different perks there. This is one of them. And you can also do that part of it at the $5 tier, too. But anyway, let me start reading these. Some of them are going to have X2 in them also. Actually, these probably all will. But a lot of people left them kind of, condensed in together. So this will be about X2 and Daredevil, our last two shows here. Michael Austin Gulick, X2 is fantastic. The praise for it has become sort of overblown through the years, but guilty. But at its core, it's a compelling story with a distinct and interesting tone that gives it a genuinely charismatic identity. It grounds its universe while still keeping true to the spirit of the source material with finesse and respect. Solid across the board. This is longer than a tweet, but I wouldn't call it...
we've doubled the length of tweets, so maybe.
We've quadrupled it here, I think. But I wouldn't call it perfect or the very best X-Men movie. For me, First Class, Days of Future Past, and Logan will still be top 3 for the foreseeable future. You should have said not too distant future. You totally missed that opportunity.
He would have been too long of a tweet.
3.5 out of 4. And then for Daredevil, he says, I have a real soft spot for Daredevil, both this movie and the character in general. He's always been one of my favorite Marvel heroes, and I'm more of an apologist for this movie than most. It has its weak and goofy moments for sure, even in the director's cut. Yes, indeed. But overall, I enjoy the direction, style, ambiance, and approach of this movie, and I think it's aged better with time since it has such a distinctive flavor compared to the homogenous superhero vibes of the current year. That sounds like a sentiment you might agree with.
I definitely have some of that. I will always go for interesting but flawed over bland and okay.
Same thing I saw 100,000 times, yeah.
In
overall, fun ride with just a few too many speed bumps, 2.5 out of 4. That's a good review. And Chewbacca's Lover says, love X2. I was so excited when it came out. I wish more superhero films now took their cues from those films. Never saw the director's cut of Daredevil, only the theatrical version once on TV. And he has no opinion about that. He just, he just saw it. Let me bring up the rest of these on Discord. Thanks for the tweet-length reviews, guys. Tom, my excerpt for X2 is a great... That's not what excerpt is. A great superhero movie that can go toe-to-toe against the others, even to this day, with not too many wrong exits. A legend. Doolittle says, Daredevil is deeply flawed, but I respect the effort. Hero. X-Men is not my... That's it. That's his rating. X-Men is not my preferred take on the material. Oh, interesting. But on its own terms, I can appreciate the movie is good. I give it a superhero. And
I definitely know a lot of people that have that with X-Men, where it's like they have like a very specific idea that they want it to be, and those movies don't hit it, even if they can recognize that it's a good movie.
Austin, would you do me a favor?
No.
Would you pull up Discord, because it's doing that thing to me again where I can only see one letter of a name. I'll read Hot Soups while you're pulling that up for me. It's M. I don't know who it is. X2, one of the early...
I think it's Matt Bat, but let me just check. It's Matt Bat.
Okay, thank you. One of the early examples... This is Hot Soup. For X2, one of the early examples of superheroes being taken seriously on film, and it still competes... Pardon me, with the best of them today. It's a legend in my book, and I haven't seen Daredevil yet.
I don't know if I'd agree with the serious part, but anyways.
What do you mean? Like people didn't, just in general, didn't buy it into it as a serious film like they would later with like Dark Knight and stuff, or
no?
Or you just mean the movie's not that serious?
No, just because I feel like that's what we were doing with like Superman and Batman and Blade and X-Men and Spider-Man. Like a little bit more comedic, I guess, in places, but not to like nitpick your review, Hot Soup.
Yeah, I can kind of see what he means in the grand scheme, just because we're only talking like 89 to 2000 or to 2003, yeah. But
no, and I can't overall. It's just I don't know, I'm nitpicking your word choice a little.
Yeah. Well, it's just I think we get the whole like taking superheroes seriously to a different level by '08. You know what I mean? We're like now we're not just looking at them as things that can be for adults and sometimes be about things. We're looking at them as whether you agree with this or not, like really good crime fiction or really good espionage fiction or.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is I think part of his sentiment is that we're going to like some of that political place, and like it doesn't feel as aimed at children.
Yeah, and you know, rough around the edges and.
Yeah. Exactly.
We don't mean to overanalyze you, Hot Soup. Matt and Bat, favorite X-Men movie, rating superhero, has nothing to say about Daredevil.
A lot of people apparently haven't seen Daredevil. But
yeah, I guess I could have split a lot of that anyway, but I didn't. So now we're going to go ahead and do our ratings. And Austin, we both said Daredevil is not going to go to Legend. So is it hero or superhero? I doubt it's going to go into the villain territory.
I am going to give Daredevil a Legend.
I changed my mind based on that ending.
No, I'm going to give it a hero. I think it's pretty good. It's definitely flawed. Some of the flaws are why I like it. Like it's an interesting movie. It does not deserve the hate that it gets.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah, sorry, did you say hero or superhero? I missed it.
Hero.
I'm so like this, because if it's the theatrical cut, I still don't think I could go lower than hero, but I'm like with this cut that has like an actual story, but then, boy, that ending.
My frustration with Daredevil is, I feel like there's a really good movie in it, and it just kind of doesn't find it, and it's bloated. And
I think so too.
And in terms of what it's doing,
and then the problem with the B story that it absolutely needs to be a story.
Yeah, I don't think the Elektra stuff works. I don't like Garner in it. Like there's just enough I think that kind of drags it down from being a really great movie to a good one.
Yeah, but what I was saying is even with the B story, it's too procedural. Like it feels like an episode of CSI or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think I have to go hero too. As much as it kind of pains me to do that, like I would have thought at one time that like the director's cut would go superhero and the theatrical cut would go under that, but it's like a high and low hero, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Maybe on another viewing with theatrical, I would find myself actually going villain with that. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. I know it's been so long since I watched it. But I feel like they're probably enough of the stuff I like in this is probably in that for me to at least give it a hero for entertainment value.
Yeah. But for the sake of completion, are we gonna feel the need to do that on this program?
I assume not, but it's up to you.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably not too.
Same with like
we've already kind of talked it out.
And obviously it's a very different thing, but like BVS, we just have to do one cut.
Now,
but then
Justice League is different. That you have to do both. They're just too different and sort of made by two different filmmakers. So like that's a horse of a different color.
Exactly.
That's a crazy exception. Guys, I hope you had a good time with us well into the night, and appreciate the group we had all night long. This double feature thing is a lot of fun. We're going to do it again next time, and I'll go ahead and reveal right now what we are doing. Austin helped me figure this out. So and we're going to let the patrons help us pick one of them next time around, but I honestly didn't think of anything until today. I totally forgot I needed to come up with one. I was like, oh no, what are we going to do? So I didn't put out a poll. Apologies with that. But anyway, so we need to do the next requested one because I had a couple of those left from a Crypto Freak show earlier in the year. And so that's going to be Tom's pick, which was... Help me out, Austin.
Mystery Men.
Mystery Men, thank you. And we're going to pair Mystery Men with what, Austin?
A movie that sounds very weird as a double feature, but it's October, so we're going to do Spawn.
We're going to go ahead and get Spawn knocked out. Another thing that I've talked about ad nauseum, and I have multiple commentaries for, or at least well, okay, I have a commentary, and then I have a commentary on Todd McFarlane's commentary. But it will be the perfect appropriate time to do it because we are still in the 10th anniversary of Spawn year. We haven't done a lot of material for that, and it's October, like you said.
And the original Rewind doesn't exist anymore.
That's right. That's right. It got copyright flagged forever ago because I used actual footage for that one.
Mm-hmm. All I remember is that Rewind ends on Spawn saying hell and Clown being like, don't say the H word.
Oh, yeah. So those are the two.
Or maybe it's heaven, not hell. Anyways.
Those are the two we're gonna tackle next time. That'll be a lot of fun. Austin, have you ever sat through Spawn?
Oh yeah, I used to watch that movie all the time.
Oh, cool. Is that the only thing you've ever looked at for that property?
No, because I was like a big Spawn fan when I was like 13. I read I'm
sorry, I thought you said earlier you've never actually looked at anything Spawn.
No. No, I said like I'm not like a big Spawn fan.
Yeah,
but
like you know stuff about it. Okay, so handing you Sam on Twitch wouldn't be anything.
No. The reason why I never finished Spawn Year until after we started talking to each other is that I tried like 4 times, but every time I was like, I'm gonna read it all with you. Yeah. And then I always hit a point where I didn't have enough money to keep buying Spawn comics.
Oh, and I forgot about that too. You've seen all of Spawn Year, so you've at least heard me talk about all that stuff.
It's been a while, so I don't remember a lot of it, but yeah.
Sure, but there's a lot of things I can reference that you'd probably be like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, no, exactly.
No,
I was trying to read it with you. I almost did Spawn Year.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Said no, I was trying to read along with you. There's another universe where I did Spawn Year as well.
Well, your brain thanks you for it. AMC Comics. So I think I'm going hero for X2 and superhero for Daredevil.
Interesting. So like the flip of what most people are.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
That is interesting. And Josh says the C Train. Jason and I quote that all the time.
Train.
The C Train. It's great. It's great delivery. It almost makes that scene worth it, even if you don't want Daredevil to kill people. It's like, but you'd never hear him say the C Train. You gotta have that.
Yeah, it'd be awkward if he was just like arresting him and he was like, you know what that is? The C Train, as he takes him away.
You know, at some point I should do another ranked list video and find some excuse to make one of the rows the C Train.
Although I didn't mention this when we were there.
Yeah.
The silliest thing about that scene is that they're like right there together, and then a train goes by, and then Daredevil knocks him off the tracks the second the train's done going by, and then he lands on the track, and there's another train coming. That is not how trains work.
That's a really good point. Okay, we want to say thanks, as always, to all of our patrons, but especially our Patreon producers. Once again, if you would like to become one of those, patreon.com/geekvolution, the $10 tier gets you access to that, but you can just go $5 to get just tweet-length reviews, and one of the perks you get at the $10 tier is Austin and I, very dramatically and somewhat drunken-soundedly, will read, even if we aren't, we'll read your names on camera, and we already did it once tonight, but it's a separate video, so we have to do it again. It's the rules. I make them, but I'm not going to change them. So that's what we do. Austin, are you ready?
Yep.
Thanks to all of you guys, including one reply. Actually, did I start the first time?
You started the first time.
Okay, we'll go the other way this time, so that you get to say all the odd ones.
Oh, okay. One reply.
Bill Mills.
Chewbacca's lover.
Doctor. Hello.
Hello. Elliot Slater.
Gooster 1, 2, 3.
Hayden Spring.
Joe Turner.
Judge.
Matt 68. We just talked about him.
Oh yeah.
We discovered that his name is more than just the M.
Yeah, it is in fact Matt Bat 68.
Right.
Michael Martin.
Stone Gasman.
The Amalgamation.
Thomas Edgehill.
We never got confirmation, but either Adam March or Aid March.
Oh, right. Yeah, I still say Adam March. I've done it forever. Thanks for being a patron forever. You're awesome, Damon. But
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to for it. But so far, Damon Begay.
Hot soup.
Couldn't even get through it.
You're one.
Jacob Schneider.
Jonathan Campbell.
Wait. Oh yeah, Justin Hayes.
Kareem Roberts.
Matthew Brody.
Michael Austin Gulick.
Miguel Rodriguez.
The Day Ghost.
Unknown Passenger.
Oh, Randall Jones.
And that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed whatever that was, and we will see you again real soon. At least by Wednesday for the... Oh, you know what? Actually, Jason and I are doing a show this weekend, but I'm not going to tell folks what it is yet. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We certainly did, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks for more Superhero Rewind commentary fun. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin... The Day Ghost.
I was one of those names that were mentioned in that list. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, folks. Appreciate you. Bye, everybody.
See ya.